we essentially, I mean, you actually might have a better idea of this than I at this point, but we essentially are picking up with you kind of on like that edge of the Warrens. This is one of the reasons why I probably shouldn't have cut them exactly on their borders. But you can kind of see essentially the Warrens are bordered by I think it's Salt Street to the north and the Old Sea Road, and we kind of placed the house that you had went into on kind of that southeastern side, right where this is, kind of just below, just to the south of where it says like 324 there.
Okay, yeah. I think the last session ended like right as we essentially realized after leaving the house that the woman we had seemed to have rescued seemed to have just like disappeared into thin air almost.
Yeah. You know what? You watched the recap, or you watch it again. Did I give her a name? Did you ever ask for her name?
I think he tried, but I don't think she actually gave it to him. She just kept kind of essentially saying like, "We need to get out of here. We need to get out of here."
All right,
And
cool.
with like the
That was
urgency, I
one of
don't
the
think he
things
pressed.
I didn't have it in my notes, like what I named her or what she would have been named. So that works. That definitely fits the character of what that NPC was or is. So we've kind of got that moment where you're more or less kind of walking along like these outskirts, still essentially inside of the guild district. Um, Again, the Warrens is dark and dangerous at all times. You never purposefully go into the Warrens. And that's one thing to kind of keep in mind through and through. We've got the guild hall for the Twin Star Marauders there, but that is purely because like that's where Kalimtas Erling has like the tavern, and it's where you're starting this organization in that kind of central position that's like circled there, right by the 316. So that's kind of like what we have there, but you never are going to go in there. If you're saving a woman from danger, you're certainly not going to then walk her into the Warrens. And as you guys are kind of walking away here and heading back over towards Old Sea Street or Old Sea Road, um, I don't remember where in particular had we talked about that you might have been heading with her. But at some point, you know, you would have noticed that she just kind of disappeared. She was no longer with you all. She could have ducked into a side street. You all could have just like lost track of her and she could have just gotten lost. But there's a certain sense of just kind of this moment. Do you want to kind of hop in at that moment? Like, are you trying to see if you can spot her when you notice? I feel like that would be a good time to maybe do like a perception check to see if you see this person along the streets near you. And we can kind of find from this roll, like, how close to when she disappeared do you notice this happen?
I don't think he had a real sense of where they were going to go as they were leaving. He would just kind of like get her out of the house, and then probably would have kind of eventually come to mind like, there's not really any safe place in the Warren, but maybe like the Kalimtas's like I think it's a tavern, right? You said that he runs.
Yeah, I've
So
got the name. If you give me 1 second here, because I named it for Chris at some point, although I don't even see it in my notes. Let me.
but I think kind of once they like when he sees that she seems to have disappeared. I mean, she was clearly traumatized. It seemed like he is going to try and kind of look around to see, kind of still like thinking protectively, like she's not going to be safe, running around in the Warrens by herself, especially kind of she looks like she'd been like kind of bruised and not in the best of health. So he would try to see if he could find her.
Gotcha. Let me get a perception check as you kind of like start to do this. I believe you still have, um, damn it, Griff with you.
Yes. And how do you want to play because technically you haven't like rested or anything. We're picking up kind of right away. So, um,
That kind of falls right back to you. Like if you want to go right back to the house in that moment without a rest, that's fine. If you want to grab a rest beforehand because you're beat up, that's perfectly fine too. As far as grabbing level 2, I'm also okay with you having that kind of right now.
okay, mostly asking because if he hasn't leveled up, then Jack of all trades wouldn't apply yet. Um, but I think the intention is to go essentially straight back into. Well, we'll see if he spots the woman because that might change. And I guess that will be assuming using Jack of all trades, that would be a 19.
I said 19.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as you notice, kind of take a few moments to kind of like almost like standing on your tippy toes and looking around the actual like traffic of people walking up and down the old sea road. This woman previously had kind of like leather garb on, where she had like dark hooded, kind of looking about for that. You're looking for like her brunette hair, like anything that kind of tells you that you might be spotting this person. And as you kind of stand up and almost try to look over the heads of anybody walking down this kind of like break between the Guildsman district and the Warrens, you do not see any signs of them.
And there's no signs of um like if he like kind of turns his attention to some of the other people in the area, like none of them are kind of like giving do they any of them give any indication that someone kind of might have just run someone unusual may have just like run past them, like their heads have turned or anything like that?
So I feel like I can't necessarily just leave this to be that same perception check. Like
Yeah,
kind
I
of the
mean this.
difference of searching for someone. It almost to me has to be the insight, because there's a constant level of somebody might get bumped into over here, but like you don't necessarily see like somebody who fits the qualities that you're looking for, like that woman would be. So the person who's getting bumped into, you quickly ignore. So I think let me get an insight to see if any of those signs, like the streets are always bustling, um and just to kind of see, like, maybe you notice somebody who doesn't seem dirty enough and they're bumping into somebody. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it almost has to be an insight check at that point.
Yeah, I mean it could also be too late because he would have spent probably a good amount of at least I think like 10, 15, 20 seconds kind of scanning the crowd. um but I
Well,
will. Yeah.
that's part of why I say, like, if you add the insight to that same moment of looking, I'm fine doing that. But that I want to add a different check to kind of like interpreting what you're seeing. Because I do think, yeah, you would see stuff like signs of somebody being bumped into down here on the street, somebody was bumped into up there on the street. You know what I mean? You would see signs of kind of the clash, but that just kind of happens normally too. So you have to like kind of interpret whether it also seems unfamiliar. Was that a 1 or is that a 20?
That's a 20, and then a +2 for insight.
Gotcha. So you do see somewhere down, kind of south of where you are, like somebody's kind of like bumped into, and they're almost like cursing off in like a southern direction, as if somebody like kind of ran past them, and you don't see like somebody immediately there to be doing said bumping. It's almost like there's a little bit of a gap in like the traffic of everybody kind of flowing up and down this street, and like a vendor on the side of the road just selling some like meat on a stick is just all of a sudden like cursing, and it's just kind of like a gap in the traffic, and it's just enough for you to be like, if somebody's trying to hide from me, that's the person causing the problem. So let me get an investigation to see if you can try to track this like flow of somebody who you don't currently see. Um, Somebody who's hiding from you.
All right. That will be a 6.
Gotcha. So you've got a solid sense that something weird was happening. Somebody was hiding, but by the time you get to the vendor, um, you don't really have anything to kind of like request of them. Do you have any thoughts? You get to this person who you saw kind of bumped into, and your interpretation was somebody might have been sneaking past here and bumped into this person. Do you have any thoughts what you would do from there?
Yeah, I think by the time he gets there, yeah, he'd probably turn to the vendor and ask, like, did you know, you see someone run by here? But otherwise, he's not ready to kind of I mean, he was already kind of torn about um, stopping his search for the pendant before, so he's not ready to like go chasing after not like a ghost, but like essentially somebody who's clearly not wanting to be um, clearly wants to kind of get away. But he will before turning back, just in case, he will go to ask the vendor like if they saw anything or saw who bumped into him, something like that.
Busy abouts moving by. A cat for some sausage, and he just kind of holds out like some of these like meats on the sticks, and two pennies a piece. Care for some?
So I think after the kind of all the stench of like the mildew and everything inside the house, he's dealt in like them doesn't really realize he's maybe hungry, but once the kind of the wafting of the smell of the sausages hits his nostrils, he's going to kind of kind of quickly, like he's in a hurry, like sure, give me two, and he will take out a few coppers and or unless pennies or silvers, whichever.
No, pennies are coppers.
Yeah, so he will take out like four. He'll actually probably just like reach in to grab a handful and kind of like almost like not even stopping to count out four specifically, and hand them over, and grab the sausages and um, return towards Briff.
Gotcha. So we talked about kind of the idea of having like two or three different purses on your person. When you're reaching into this pocket, like how many coins are in there? Like how many coins do you think you might pull out, like as a maximum? How many do you think you could pull out as kind of like the minimum?
Yeah, so he'd be carrying probably about a fair number of coppers. You know, uh, probably at least like I would say maybe
Do you think you
50.
could accidentally like grab like 10?
Yeah, I would say like he's not gonna like obviously like grab like a huge handful, but I would say anywhere from like yeah, I would say he could grab at least like 10, or not. I
Gotcha.
mean, not at least, but up to.
Roll 2d4 for me. If you roll below a 4 or a 4, you can pay him 4 copper. If you roll above, that's what you pay.
All right, yes, it looks like 5 copper total.
Excellent. So yeah, you grab 5 copper out, ask for 2 sausages. He hands you 2 of these like sausages on a stick. Pretty much think like a grilled hot dog, basically. Um, and kind of like looks to you and is like, he moved that way, rushing off in a hurry. And he just kind of points down, continues to point like towards the south where you were already looking. So you're right back into that same idea. Theoretically, somebody of interest is going that way. Theoretically, you also need to rest, or you could go back to that house and try to find the amulet you were originally looking for.
Yeah, I think he's gonna look off to the south. Well, thank you to the vendor. He'll kind of look off to the south, kind of like a look of consternation will come onto his face, but then he's just kind of like mutter under his breath, shake his head, and kind of maybe even like this, it's like hope she's safe. But he is going to turn back, thinking, I don't know, I don't know this woman. My uncle is the priority, and we should, he wants to get back to the house and continue the search.
Gotcha. Let me get a survival from you as you kind of like navigate through the city. I'm pretty sure we had it kind of entering into evening here. So this is kind of dusk time where the last bits of the actual sun are kind of setting off to the west. You have kind of that beautiful like twilight hour coming, and many people are kind of in this shift exchange as guilders come off of work. There's more vendors outside trying to sell them dinners on their way home. Seven there?
Eight total. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you kind of like struggle to get through a bunch of the traffic, eventually kind of like wandering a little bit closer. Actually, let me ask you there. If you're kind of struggling through the traffic like along Old Sea Road, you could cut through the Warrens. You know where you're going. You also know there's the potential danger of like the children who had kind of been watching you the previous time, and just the general dangers of the Warrens. Do you have any thoughts about how you want to continue forward?
Yeah, and we had come running out quickly, so had all the kind of stuff with us, including I think the plate armor that Briff was carrying, and I mean something like that. Like those kids, that would probably draw anybody who wanted to rob us. I mean that's can't really be hidden. Um, so even though it's going to take more time to versus cutting through the Warrens, I think especially it's getting dark. He is going to uh, try and be a little more, take a little more of a circuitous route, trying to keep to at least the relatively safer areas, maybe. Um, yeah, and we're not, and yeah, Dalton's house is down at the other end, so it's not like it's two would be a ways to go and try and like drop things off and hide them. So I think he is going to take the quote unquote safer way back without cutting through the Warrens.
Gotcha. So as you're kind of like moving kind of out towards like the guild district and making the more circuitous kind of effort to get back to the same location, you're eventually going to turn down probably something like say like Hogshead Street up towards the north there, kind of like looking to cut towards East Street and make your way back like up into the north. Do you see that up towards the northeast there? It almost like makes a triangle off of Old Sea Road if you follow that directly south to Hogshead.
Yeah, so we're Old Sea Road. Yep, yep.
So, kind of like cutting along this route, looking to. I think we actually had you all, you and Briff, kind of gambling over on like Stew Pot Street at one point, or maybe that was like the penny sleep that you guys had. But you're kind of like cutting through this, and as you guys kind of like turn down to head towards East Street, you kind of look ahead of you, and about 60 or 80 feet ahead, you can see that there is a group of the city guard. They seem to be just kind of like standing in a circle from this distance. Can't quite tell what they're doing, but there seems to be a group of the city guard kind of about 60 or so feet ahead of you. Continue forward? Do you want to divert? Do you want to like run forward? What are you thinking here?
Hmm. I think Dalton's thinking like, we've just been, we're carrying some loot from this haunted house, and armor is expensive. The guards might ask, where we came across it, and he doesn't want to risk getting caught up in any sort of questioning, or even worse, being arrested. Um, so I think he's going to basically try and maybe kind of pull Briff aside, like if there's a around the side of a building, sort of try and get out of sight of the guards.
Gotcha. If you'd like to do something like almost like kind of spinning back and stepping like back behind the building, you can roll. Let me get like a stealth check from you here. Um, Alternatively, you could like just kind of try to progress forward and do like a performance check to just try not to look shady as if you're just walking past on Hog's head, and try to like hide the fact that you were like in the process of turning down East Street.
Yeah, I think that second one probably sounds more his style.
Yeah, I think you're an actor. I'm not actually sure what the actor feat gives you.
I think it's like +1 to deception and persuasion checks, maybe.
Gotcha. It's a
Oh, and I
deceptive
can
performance.
mimic the speech of other people or sounds made by other creatures. So I forgot about that. Like when we were in the cavern with the rat folk, that I might have been able to try to essentially like mimic their speech patterns or something like that. But I do have to listen to them for at least a minute, so maybe not. But yeah, it's very it kind of fits with his charlatan background.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the like there's a fighter battle master ability where like sometimes like saying I'm going to take the time to listen to this for a minute so in the future I'll be able to mimic them in the same way as like the battle master. I think if you watch somebody fight for a minute, you then like gain advantage fighting against them. It's something like that, but that's one of those things where keep that in mind to like kind of say like I'm going to sit here and try to like hide as I listen for a minute so I'll be able to mimic this person into the future.
Yeah, I have to try and like keep that a little more top of mind. Yeah, because I honestly completely forgot about it after I picked it. But yeah, I think he will. Yeah, essentially he'll try to kind of like seeing the guards. He'll essentially try to um, subtly as he can, essentially try to like shift make it seem like they were headed um, you know uh, another direction, and not that they're reacting to the presence of the guards.
Gotcha. Let me get that performance from you.
Looks like that'll be a an 11. Yeah, it's not really trying to pass myself off as a different person, so just an 11. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys kind of pass past East Street, move off towards the end of Hog's Head, and come to Curtain Street. And kind of like listening behind you, you don't hear any signs. You didn't hear anything from the guards, kind of like yelling to stop. Hopefully, nobody noticed you.
Yeah. So he will kind of give a little sigh of relief. Maybe something in the back of his mind is maybe like, what were they, what were they doing there? Maybe it was just a patrol. But he also knows that there have been the rumors of the murders and such. But he's more focused on getting back to the mansion. Um,
There's just as much about being a local of this city just to recognize that there's always something happening somewhere. So you can be as curious as you'd like, but like you would also be pretty familiar with. There's always something that the police can get themselves into.
Okay, yeah, so not really that unusual an occurrence. Gotcha.
Yeah, I
Um,
think you had the right idea, not necessarily to become a part of it because you've got better things to do. If you're bored one night and you want some entertainment, you could possibly go, like, that's the type of thing where a charlatan might go in there just for the fun of it, but it also could give you a night in jail kind of thing.
yeah, and again, like we're carrying some stuff that's looted, and you know, and even if the guards, I mean, the guards could be dirty, right? They could be just shaking them down, or yeah, he just doesn't want to risk. Doesn't see the upside in risking a confrontation if he can avoid it for now.
So you can spin off down Curtain Street and kind of like do like the full wheel around, coming close to like the Cliffs of Lost Wishes. You walk along kind of that last little block to see like part of the last like bits of sunlight scattering across like the Bay of Tollis, and you kind of see like some of the view of I think from this level you would have like a sight of the lighthouse kind of off to the east, but I don't think it's really, yeah, it's kind of southeast like Beacon Island, if you look off there. But yeah, from the Warrens you're kind of just like a little bit above that, to where it's directly visible. You can see some of the docks below. I would actually bet that's a pretty beautiful view, even though like straight ahead of you you're also looking into like essentially the worst, darkest, most dangerous part of the city. But as the last bits of sunlight kind of fail, you're going to gain that first kind of sight of the mansion ahead. And I swore I put it on here so I could drop the picture for you. And I don't have it. But you can begin to approach the mansion. When you come back there, you've seen some of the places that you can approach from. Do you have any other thoughts on how you would like to approach the mansion?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. I don't recall seeing any other entrances, but I know there were a few windows that I think the glass had been broken out. So
Gotcha.
maybe
So that might have been just as much my fault. Um, Let me move you back over onto. Oh, my bad. I keep forgetting that it takes a while to load. I'm like looking at my bot's screen and I don't have the picture. Like, what's going on? So from this, you have that entrance on the northeast side that's near the kitchen.
okay. I think I'm still seeing the second floor.
I still have the roof above because of how I cut it out,
Oh,
but
gotcha.
this is the first floor.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe he'll try. Dalton will suggest we try maybe a less conspicuous, not the main entrance, and then maybe see if we can go in through the kitchen. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, the way I set it up, I just like overlaid this on top of the rest of it. Um, I don't know. It was a weird approach because I wanted to have like the clutter of this being next to the Warrens, where you almost have like buildings built on buildings. And then I did this, I think, because I decided not to just have like a completely arbitrary, like actual roof shot of it. So if you would like, you can enter in that back door, like right next to the kitchens. Basically, you'll come in and you would know that like the kitchen door is that one on the north side, and then there was the door to the basement off to the east of that. If you don't go into the kitchen, you had kind of like a dining room off to the left, or I guess really, what is it when you're facing that way? Off to your right, but it would be hour left, and then you had like a little living room off to the right there. But from where you're at, like where you have your marker there, you're basically staring towards the front door. At this point in day, though, you're at dusk, so you're going to need to be carrying light inside of here. Do you have something prepared on Dalton? Or is he classic bard? You have candle?
He's got torches.
All right, excellent.
Yeah, I haven't gotten around
So
to actually updating my inventory on D&D Beyond, but he does have some torches. He and Briff.
gotcha. So I think walking around with the torches right now, you can probably see out into the hall. Actually, right about where I accidentally clicked with the little pink marker, probably about halfway towards the entrance. And then it's dim enough light that you can spot the actual entrance further there. But everything else is kind of well lit. Again, it's like 30 feet or about 6 spaces. And what did he do for Briff last time? I think he was the hooded man. I think that was Briff last time.
Yep, that was the yep. And I think I accidentally dropped a token in the fog of war area above me. So sorry about that.
I'm good. I just saw it and I was like, ooh, and I forgot to delete a token
Nope,
because that
that
was
was me.
actually the room where your tokens were when we left this area last time. I was like, oh
Okay.
shit. I thought I cleaned everything up and I got it prepared to go through again.
Yep, no, that was me. Yeah, so and the other thing that struck me when I was watching the recap is when we were doing the last session, I kept talking about maybe my uncle hid it somewhere, but then what actually he said is that when he was fleeing, he dropped it or he lost it somehow, so he doesn't recall. So that might change like where I search for it. Um, so I think we had explored so we went into the cellar. We had gone up the stairs. I don't think we had explored all of it. I think our explorations upstairs got kind of cut off after we found the woman and left with her. So Dalton is going to suggest that we essentially return upstairs and kind of pick up where we left off.
Gotcha. So what I can tell you, part of what, like from the lower level, you never checked out the east wing. Um, and then up top, I think I think you searched everything up top. Granted, um, yeah, I want to say I think you searched everything up top. But part of what I want you to recognize is like you certainly shouldn't have a sense like I've searched everything. Um, you've pretty much covered everything in the house, and I think having the idea like I missed something is potentially where Dalton should be here. But I think the only spot like that I didn't remove the fog of war was actually the first level east wing of the house.
Okay, I thought that was the one with the. I thought there was like that room with the bookshelves, and then there was the other one to the north where we found something. Are you talking about like
Room with the bookshelves was kind of like southwestern.
oh yeah, sorry, I'm turning around my east and west. You're right. No, we did not. Yeah, I think you're right. We did not explore the east. We explored the west. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, so in that case, Dalton will suggest that we um, kind of start our search on the east wing of this first floor, um, and start moving down the hallway that way again. He is going to. We know we've run into some kind of creepy crawlies and stuff in here. So he will have his weapon at the ready in addition to his torch, as he is kind of moving through here.
Gotcha. So, like looking down that hallway, you just kind of see like there are two different doors. One is close to the actual end of the hall, and one is actually pretty much just south of where you're at here. Both of them, like all the other doors in this place, just seem to be wooden doors made of the same kind of wood as the floors, the walls, and the roof of this place. It's a very old construction. There's a lot of signs again of like water damage in this place from like a failing roof. But as you move forward towards those, you're basically just north to one of the doors. If you would like to open that, you are welcome to.
Yeah, he will go to move the open this first door nearest the main entry, and just wanted to check the so like the mansion when we kind of came around the back, we didn't see any sort of like outbuildings or anything like that. It's just the one structure as far as we can tell.
This is again where I'm getting into the idea that this is kind of on the verge of the Warrens itself. This is one of those things where to determine what an outbuilding would be on this place is probably beyond you. It's where the Warrens are starting to grow into this area, and there are buildings built on top of buildings, next to buildings, buildings. This is one of those things where, like, the full slums of the Warrens very quickly become kind of seen as like the Undercity in the same way as the danger of the actual Undercity. The Warrens have buildings. There's buildings built into the actual like small little alleyways. So at any given point, there's buildings built over your head of rickety shit. And this place is just inside of it. So that was part of why I did actually want to construct this idea that there are other roofs and other buildings in this area because they encroach on this building. Some of them are built up to and basically like, use this as support. So like say that red building doesn't fall over to the southwest because it leans on this building. There might even be, if you go out there, signs of people hammering some of the support wood into this building. And that's like part of the spirit of the Warrens, where it's just find supplies, start hammering together. Once it makes a platform, you throw your bed down. Once you can make a roof, you've got a house.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, he will. Go to open that first door here. Kind of ready for the stench, so he's probably like instinctively holding his nose at this point, knowing that there's a lot of mildew and death and all that in here.
Gotcha. So this room, as you kind of open this one up, you get a pretty quick kind of stench of like an earthy kind of sweetness. You'll notice like growing in this room. Um, Looks like that should be the fireplace off to the west here. Growing in this room, there's actually like mushrooms that are growing out of that fireplace, like with big red caps. And otherwise, the room looks pretty much bare. Uh, I think you could see there's a door into the room to the east that's about like across from the actual fireplace.
Okay, and so Dalton is going to move into the room. I mean, he's definitely no botanist or I don't know if there's a mushroom specific equivalent.
Mycologist.
Mycologist, thank you. But he is going to. I mean, do these look like anything he might have seen like growing elsewhere? He's mostly lived in the city, so he doesn't have a lot of like outdoors experience.
Roll an intelligence.
Flat 14.
Um, I would say there's probably I'd probably put it to like you have enough of like an understanding that like some people use mushrooms for different things. You probably don't know enough about them to be able to dabble, and to really know whether this is something that is consumed, used as a poison, or used as like a healing herb. Um, it's enough that you can recognize like they might have value into themselves. Um, might just be something that's just simply here. Um, but I don't think there's any reason to go either way there. I was mostly thinking about those books, but it looks like the one was actually the magical properties of herbs, um, which is close, but like there wouldn't be any mushrooms in there.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So not, yeah, not sure. And they could be, you know, helpful, harmful, benign, but, it's not of any immediate concern from what he can tell. Nothing that, he is going to move towards the door that seems to lead perhaps into the same room as the other door up at the end of the hall across from the fireplace.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So moving through here, you can open up that door. There's like a little bit of like a stick to it. It's not like perfectly situated in its door frame, and it takes like a little bit of effort to open up. Once you do kind of like push through that little bit of a stick, though, you see another slightly smaller room. There's signs of like plaster from the ceiling kind of falling down into this room. Should be a fireplace pretty much directly along that other wall opposite you here. But other than that, doesn't really seem like there's anything in this room either.
Yeah. So he will. I mean, he will step in. And I know so a bunch of the floorboards up on the second floor seem like they were kind of um, well, one of them, some of them did actually run away. Has he gotten any, or does he see any signs that there's any sort of similar um, kind of degradation on this first floor?
If if you look above you at the ceiling, you see signs of like the actual plaster in the ceiling, not even necessarily like failing above, but like sagging. Like that ceiling can support next to no weight above you.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think just to check, he will kind of head over to there's a fireplace on this kind of opposite corner as well, um, just to kind of peek in with his torch. Probably doesn't want to get too close because I think last time he did, a bunch of spiders swarmed out at him, but still probably stay a good like 10 feet away, maybe, and just kind of like just see if the torchlight catches like the glint of anything. But otherwise,
Gotcha. So, like looking into that one, you could roll a perception check. Is there a reason you didn't look into the one with the mushrooms?
uh, initially he didn't really want to get too close, but I think he's going to. Maybe he didn't think of it initially, but before he goes back to Briff, he is going to do the same thing on the other side.
Gotcha. Let me get a perception check as you look into these.
So it should be a 9. I don't think I rolled a single good perception check inside this place.
So, as you're kind of like looking through, first this like more eastern room, and then going back towards the mushrooms to like check again, you do notice like there seems to be a stone that is loose and out of place above like where the mushrooms are growing out. Like compared to the other uh, chimney kind of situation, this one has like a brick out of place.
Okay, so yeah, so that will catch his attention. And thinking maybe this is some sort of hiding place. He will move to. He'll probably actually ask, probably like Briff to come over and hold the torch. Then he'll have both hands free, and then see if he can essentially maneuver the brick, kind of like extract it.
Gotcha. So as you pull out the brick, you can see that there's a small little leather wrap that's kind of like placed inside of this little holder, and it was just enough that like if the brick was like 3/4, it would have slid in there smooth. But it's probably like an inch or so that the brick can't slide in because this little leather wrap, almost like a cigar kind of shape, is just kind of pressed in behind it. But you can pull that out, and you kind of hear like the little clink of stones. I think it's safe to say, like when you go to unwrap it, you'll find there's two gemstones inside of there. They are blue quartz. I think for what it's worth, give one to Brit. Oh man,
Yeah, Briff, you're right. Yeah.
yeah, but I don't want to split stuff halfway during the session because technically I feel like we had stuff that you guys would need to split from last session. So just for right now, on Dem record um 10 gold piece, two of those blue quartz, but they're 10 gold piece a piece. I think at some point, like once we kind of get away from this day, which is technically a month ago, once we get away from this day, we'll then settle like the two of you on like the treasure idea.
Yeah, I've been trying to basically keep track of. So, like after the last session, like where, or not the last session, the session one before that with the rat tails, like I essentially put, whatever it was, like 19 and a half gold on on Briff. And like I said, I haven't really been keeping I've been keeping it separate on a separate track. And that's part of why I was going back and rewatching the things to make sure I got it right. Um, but I have been kind of like essentially keeping them split with essentially the 50-50 idea.
If you do something like that, the solution might be to add a pouch or something to your character sheet and just name it Briff's items, and then anything that you ever put on Briff, you can put there, and just don't click it so it doesn't add the weight to you. But you should be able to put stuff on him like that kind of thing. That might be the right solution.
Yeah, I do. I did actually. I think you suggested that before. So I do have a Briff, backpack, quote unquote, on there. I just, like I said, I haven't been keeping good track of it on D&D Beyond. But I'm pretty much caught up now with all the videos, and I took much better notes rewatching them. So I am. The plan is after this session to kind of go in and get everything up to date.
Yeah, I don't think managing the like sidekick is nearly as important as enjoying yourself. So I certainly understand. It's definitely that oddity that just on some level, if you just added everything to yourself and then we deal with it afterwards, that's perfectly acceptable. Well,
Yeah, I mean, I think he would, he would essentially, there's two gems. Obviously, he'll just like, give one to Briff now. But yeah, yeah, I know what you're saying. Um, yeah, so now I think, uh, maybe we need to try and find a way to get up into the attic. I know the stairs had fallen away, and much of the floor is uh, is rotted. Probably, um, leave our packs behind, try and be as light as possible. Maybe we can hide them somewhere, Briff. But see no sign of that pendant yet, and the attic's the only other place I can think to we might look. Um, and he is going to, assuming Briff gives no objections, is going to start for the stairs leading back up to the second floor.
Where do you think we should hide our backpacks?
He's going to suggest there were those two kind of open uh, containers in the cellar. Um, he's going to suggest that we maybe try and put them in there. Trying to think there was a better place that we had already kind of explored. Yeah, maybe I think that the cellar, that was his first thought.
Gotcha. So if you head back towards the northern side of the house, you'll pass back past those areas where you explored the kitchen to the west. There was like a little bit of kind of like a sitting room to the east, and then you can open up that northern door to make your way back into the kitchen. You've got the stairs there that lead up to the second level, and then there is a door that leads to the east to the stairs down to the cellar.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think he will move to uh head back down into the cellar. I think these are the stairs leading down.
Was something making you hesitate, sir?
Just remembering that scream, but uh and those things, the, maggots, whatever they were. But no, otherwise he will go ahead and head downstairs.
When you step on the stairs again, you're once again going to hear the same scream as there's just a horrible shriek of pain. Ah!
And he's gonna jump, kind of almost like like almost like he was trying to steel himself just in case it happened again, but that did nothing, and he just kind of, like it came out of nowhere again. And he's gonna step back again, kind of shake his head, and start back down. Yeah, go back down, and I guess the same thing, that mouth kind of opened up or appeared again, or was this just
Yeah, it's the same thing as what happened before. One of the things that I was trying to think of right there is like I didn't remember if I described that there was the mouth like associated with it. I also thought in hindsight maybe it would have been a good idea to like hide the mouth underneath the stairs so you don't even see it. I feel like magic mouth is just such a silly spell. Like if you're trying to trick people into it being like a haunted house, it makes a lot more sense to me if you don't have the mouth visible. So I kind of like the idea of maybe the entire time the mouth was out of view. but you do hear like if you roll an intelligence check for me, actually.
Sure. That's 8.
Yeah, I mean that's close enough. It's pretty much the exact same screams. Like you hear like an overlay of a few different screams. There's one main painful, horrific scream, but you're like kind of in your head. You're not sure, but you're questioning if that was the same scream. You know, the idea that's like that seems really similar.
Gotcha.
Actually, at this point, you know what? I could even easily give you the advantage on this one. Give me another d20. Let me see, because again, you're hearing it a second time.
Nope, still being 8.
Gotcha. So yeah, stick with just the idea. Like you're pretty sure like that scream was like familiar, but it's definitely the type of thing you're like walking into and expecting it. You hear it after having expected it, and it just kind of like further confirms kind of this weird like feeling like again, if I can ask you to ignore the idea of the magic mouth, like
Sure.
there was something about like that exact stair that you stepped on the third stair and you again heard, I'm pretty sure it was like 3 or 4 people screaming last time. And it's all just like far too familiar. It's not like movie tropey, but in a movie, this would be the movie trope moment, like the um I can't think of the actual name of the scream, but there's a famous scream in movies that just gets used over and over. The Wilhelm scream. It would be the Wilhelm scream.
Right. Okay. I was thinking of almost like like Halloween decorations that are motion activated, right? So every time you walk past it, it gives that little like yeah.
So roll an Arcana here for me.
The
Yeah.
Arcana is +1, so 7. Yeah.
For now, that's what you know. It seems kind of along those ideas of like you've seen some people who, when the Night of the Living Dead kind of comes around, they do use their magic to kind of like those haunting little ends of kind of making things happen to frighten children in those playful manners.
Right. Yeah. So heading down, and I know we had already checked the wine racks and found everything was basically either smashed or empty. Um, but he's thinking like if we want to essentially like if we're leaving our packs, if what if we tried to essentially almost like cover them if we could see if we were able to move one of these racks and almost kind of like put it on top of it. Not that it's going to hide like be like a great hiding thing, but just maybe at least if someone was just like casually observing, they might not spot, a couple of packs lying underneath one of these kind of overturned wine racks. Um, she's going to kind of suggest to Briff that maybe we try that if it's possible to move or detach from like along the wall. I don't know how heavy those things are.
So I think for right now, you're just trying to see like if you can kind of move around the wine racks.
Yeah, yeah.
So let me get yeah, let me just get like a strength check from you here.
15.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I'd say as you're kind of like moving these racks around and you try to kind of place them to give yourselves like a little bit of kind of like a hidden spot. Uh my apologies there. You can adjust them and kind of make a little bit of a gap where you can hide your like backpacks like behind like the 3 along that northern wall.
Yeah, so he will. Yeah, so he'll do that. So like the stuff like I think the backpack that he had kind of retrieved from underneath the corpse in here and he'll suggest like Briff leave behind the plate armor and like their heavier stuff, and essentially try and be as the books that they had found. Most of their equipment aside from like weapons, what they're carrying, a couple extra torches, sort of stuff. Mostly again for like the weight purposes that he's worried about, with given the damage to the second floorboards. And then once he's not going to spend a ton of time like trying to make it perfect, but just kind of very um, after moving the wine racks and maybe putting the packs behind, and um, then suggest that maybe I'm just being paranoid, but this should be fine. Uh, Hopefully, won't be gone too long. Find what we're looking for and get the hell out of here. This place gives me the creeps. But otherwise, get ready to move back upstairs.
Everything seems in order. Seems well enough placed. Let me have you roll kind of like a perception as you're like finishing off your kind of like hiding stuff here.
Mm, 9.
You're just crushing the D20 rolls like between 2 and like 6.
Yeah, I'm not rolling too high. Yeah, this is where I know we've talked about before. We're having like somebody who's a little more perceptive, like a second player, could come in here. Could come in handy, because I feel like even if there was tons of stuff around, I'm just like not seeing any of it. I'm just blind.
Yeah, it's one of the weird interplays of playing like solo D&D, but it plays both ways. Um So I don't know if you discovered the bottle of wine that's kind of underneath these wine racks previously. But essentially kind of like as you're doing this kind of like final like check over this place, um, you do spot like kind of where like a bottle of wine seems to have like been pushed aside by like moving those wine racks. Unless you already have kind of a bottle of wine written down here, I would say this is the time where you notice it. I feel like last time you never looked in the place to kind of discover it, because it is kind of a niche. Like you look under the wine racks, and that's where I'm saying you jostle it free when you move the wine racks here.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, last time he had just looked kind of over the wine racks themselves, but not like closely searching, and not like looking under or behind or anything like that. So yeah, he definitely would have not something he would have spotted the first time around.
Gotcha. So you can. This is another one of those weird things. Like you can write down that you've got the bottle of wine. As far as like what you know about it, it's probably next to nothing. It just depends on if Dem has any reason to know anything about wine. But as far as like Justin keeping track of this, just write down that it's a 50 gold piece bottle, rare vintage wine. Depending on if you have a reason to know finer things, which an actor might be perfectly situated for that, just like the age of the bottle might be enough to say, like, this might fetch a pretty penny. It also might be really flavorful vinegar.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dalton himself is probably not really a fine wine drinker. He probably knows like just enough to be able to fake his way around a conversation, or maybe just because he feels like probably like a lot of people who talk like they know about wine are doing the exact same thing. Like they don't really know what they're talking about. So he just like say, he brings up like, oh yeah, the tannins and like sense of, and he just makes up a bunch of, kind of mentions a bunch of fruit. But he, in terms of actually knowing anything about fine wine, no, he would have no reason to know.
Oh, I worked selling wine for years. I think actually like just under 3 years. And it's one of those things where it is statistically recorded that people know nothing about wine. Your nose means nothing. If you enjoy wine, great. If somebody tells you this is expensive, great wine, you're gonna think it tastes great. Like so much of it is our psychology. And when I sold wine, you know, pretty much everything I had was stupid expensive, so I couldn't go wrong selling it. It was always one of those things where it's just like, don't worry what this or this is. I would have like three or four different like vintages of the same kind of wine, like the same kind of grape. And it was always just like, if you want to buy this, what is it, like Sabria? It's been ages since I sold the wine. But like, if you want to like this Portuguese wine, taste these four. Tell me which ones you like. You might find out you like the $250 bottle. You might find out you like the $80 bottle. But it's whichever one you like. And that was one of those things, like it's astounding how bad people are at wine. Like you can sell actual, I can't think of the word offhand, but like the wine experts, you can give somebody white wines dyed red, describe it as extremely tasty, wonderful reds, and like have it be $10 bottles of white. But because you described it, because they see what they expect to see, they fuck up. It's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, or you put the same wine in two different bottles, one like the cheap, one the cheap label, one like all fancy, and they rate them completely differently when it's exactly the same wine.
That's one of the studies that I'm actually like going off of, is where they like did like two different testings, blind taste testings, against all of these damn, I wish I could think of the word for the wine connoisseur, because I've thought about getting the certification.
Oh, are you
Um,
talking about like a sommelier?
Sommelier. Yep, there we go. Yeah, yeah, and it's just one of those things where they're going against world class sommeliers doing blind taste testings, but they only served one white wine, and these people are describing like the 16 different whites that they have, the 16 different red wines that they have, but it's all the same, like that Australian like barefoot white.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Uh,
again, it's one of those things, when you enjoy something, enjoy it. So yeah, like I think it's perfectly fine for Dalton to recognize this as a payday just as much as not. But you can add that to yourself. You guys have your things stowed down here, and when you are ready, you can kind of move on.
yeah. So he'll, yeah. So the wine might be worth something, like might be worth nothing, but it's nice old bottle. Looks at least like it might be worth something. He will kind of essentially stick it. He'll leave it that down here with the other stuff as well. And then yeah, get ready and head back upstairs and start going towards the second floor. And then I think yeah, like he said, I think he said the attic, like the bottom of the stairs that led up, had fallen away, and there were just like the top part.
Yeah, so as you ascend these stairs, you're coming up from the left, and you get up to the level on like the right side of these. And then I almost think of it as like maybe there's like a spin to the stairs at that point, where they almost like say turn like 45 degrees. But yeah, like that basically portion has like crumbled away, where it's not necessarily like climb up onto the stairs like above your shoulders, but it's probably like say like mid drift to, like hips high to get onto the stairs. It's just the question of, is do you trust the stairs to kind of put your weight on it, probably more than anything.
Yeah, so Pelton's definitely unsure about that, but he doesn't want to try. So he's thinking like, so if Briff could essentially give him like a boost up, like a leg up, then he might be able to try and like grab a hold. He'd probably do like a tug or two just to make sure it didn't like immediately collapse. Um,
Gotcha. Almost look for him to be supporting you as you're actually putting weight onto it.
yeah. And then once I guess he would sheathe his weapon, because obviously you're gonna need at least one hand free to kind of grab like the banister or something like that. He probably would try to have the torch still though in one free hand. So at least maybe he could at least sort of kind of I don't know how high, how far the stairs keep going. But he would, assuming again they don't kind of crumble away immediately, he will try to kind of gingerly move to get like full purchase and actually stand on top of this these stairs here.
So I My apologies. I think as you kind of like get lifted up by Briff and you kind of get like one hand kind of holding the torch, but like kind of pressed against the wall. So you almost have like the torch's flame kind of center line with your body, like away from the wall. And then the other hand kind of like bracing on the banister, like your right hand braced on the banister. And you start to kind of push some weight down onto the floor with like your left foot first and your right still kind of like standing on Briff's like interlaced hands. You kind of like feel like the first moment of pressure, like kind of feels unsteady. You put maybe like 30-50 pounds of pressure on and you start to already hear like the creaks of like the fibers starting to give way. That step's no good. Kind of move your foot up another one, try to do the similar thing, and you're just going to kind of find like the signs of these steps being good is not there. You're probably looking at, do you need to climb that like 10 feet just to get like straight to the attic and skip these steps? So you can potentially do that. You'll need to start with basically a strength check, like fully standing on top of Briff kind of thing, like being fully hoisted up there, and then potentially like lowering him a rope or something to bring him up after you.
Yeah. So once it becomes clear that yeah, these stairs are not going to support his weight, he will yeah, he'll kind of climb back down. Kind of, yeah, that's not going to get up that way. Maybe if you boost me up, I might just be able to reach and pull myself up. Maybe those floorboards are a little more solid than the stairs. Feel like we have to try. And he will basically ask Brick to boost him again. I think this time he's going to have to. Probably he'll need to use both hands for this, so he is going to. Um,
Like put the
yeah, probably put the torch, I guess, on the ground near them because I think Brick's going to need probably both hands to boost him up too. So it should still be enough light. It'll just he won't have it with him as he tries to essentially see if he can get purchase directly on the boards above.
Gotcha. Yeah, a lot of these boards are kind of like already waterlogged and like um like showing signs of like having that kind of like rot through them, that they're wet all the time. So you're not going to like immediately start this place on fire. It does quench a lot of the light to set the torch down, but it gives you all enough to kind of progress forward. So let me have you do a strength check. You can have advantage as Briff kind of helps you up here and see if you're able to hoist yourself up into the attic.
All right, 19.
All right, so you can hoist yourself up there and kind of get a little bit of help, and kind of, I assume, almost like go down on your stomach, and you're going to help him up.
Yeah, he's going to try and like lay himself flat. Also, that might help distribute the weight a little bit, and then try and essentially reach down and try to help pull Briff up. Actually, before he does that, since the torch is still down on the ground, he's going to light a second torch kind of again put it sort of beside him up here, and then go to lift Briff up.
Gotcha. Let me have you do. Um, Let me have you roll a D100 for me here, as you're like trying to spark to get this torch going.
19.
All right, yeah. With next to no effort, you kind of like just roll over your like flint and steel right onto kind of like the oil of like this torch head, and it starts to pick up with like a soft kind of light as it burns like those first like effervescent like molecules of the fuel that kind of like sit along these torch heads. It's not like come fully to brightness yet, but you have light up top. Briff has the torch down below. Um, are you going to tell him to put his out basically at this point? How's he going to bring his up when he's getting assisted by you? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, given like the kind of the wetness of the wood, probably not too likely we're gonna burn the house down. But he will tell Briff once he's got the one up here lit. He'll tell Briff to essentially put that one out, because we're both gonna need both hands probably to hopefully try and get him up here with me. But probably otherwise just leave the kind of the once the torch is out, maybe just kind of leave it on the ground down here and try and get him up.
Yeah, yeah, I kind of assume you almost like spark it and just like leave it already kind of laying on the ground. So the flames like growing on that torch up top there, while it's still set on the ground, it's not going to fully catch. It's actually going to do much less to burn towards that wood because it'll prevent it from like drawing all around it. But Briff can kind of like wrap that one in like a little bit of fabric, a little bit of leather, stow it like right into his belt out, reach up. Let me get another strength check from you again at advantage as the two of you try to pull Briff up.
All right, so that one is an 11.
Gotcha. It's still sufficient enough that you guys like struggle a little bit more here. As you're kind of pulling him up here, you guys are going to start to hear like movement up here in the attic. As the first like sound you kind of hear is a little bit of like a I need you guys to, or I need you to roll for initiative.
All right. Should be a 7. Oh no, wait. I guess track of all trades looks like it actually applies to initiative as well. So 8.
Yes, initiative is a dexterity check. Since you can't be proficiency in it, it's one of the best things about bards.
I was wondering why it went up from 3 to 4, +3 to +4. But yeah, that must be what it is. And actually, do you mind if I just step away for like a couple minutes, real quick, before we
Oh no, that's
get
perfectly
started
fine.
with this? All right. Oh, and sorry, I just want to clarify something with regard to the debt. That's Dem's debt, just Dem's debt, right?
Yeah, I mean, as far as things go with Briff, like I'm not gonna keep like playing out his. More or less, he's gonna keep like ending up finding himself in debt. But that's where he's just a sidekick. If he ever ended up becoming somebody's main, um, part of how I've been playing this though is like you don't have to always go back to Briff. As far as I'm kind of playing things right now, I kind of have a group of sidekicks who are effectively members of the Twin Star Marauders, and it's just one of those things like when you go and check in. I had a cool name for the fucking bar, and I bet you Chris knows it. For some reason, I don't have it written down. I want to say it's like the Hook Tavern or something like that. But effectively, like, one of the missions I gave him the option, and like four different sidekicks were there. And one's a ranger, one of them's like a fighter, one of them's, you know what I mean? Like, allow it to be, if you want to recruit somebody to help you, you can do that. In the same way as I think like one day Red was playing, Chase was playing, and he like recruited a sidekick like from the tavern in Delver Square.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think like yeah, but I mean, I like the idea. Like if like Briff became my main, like if I wanted to do that, if Deb died, but they have like this pre-existing relationship, and so the Kilray is just like, well, he's dead, but he didn't pay his debt, so it's your debt now, that kind of thing. But otherwise, I'm considering it. I have been considering it like it's all, yeah, it's Dem's debt to pay, not splitting it with Briff. So I just wanted to make sure I had that right.
Yeah, I'm not going to put his debt on you with Killraven, but that is part of where I say like he's continually finding himself like back in debt with Killraven.
Yeah, yeah,
And then it's the same type of thing. That's also part of why each time I've given you the option to pay off Killraven and essentially try to distance yourself from Sinway and the Killraven Crime League. Because one of the other things is to recognize like you're benefiting from them, but it's only ever gonna get worse. Like it's still organized crime.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think this is the third time he's rolled it over, so I think his hope is that he can, yeah, maybe get out from under their thumb, um, and just like pay this off and be done with it. Um, Especially now he's heard about Kelimtar, and maybe if he wants to go a little bit more quote unquote legit, and no
Well,
longer
and
escape.
how I have it set up, like the idea of having a group that is rising from the Warrens is itself allows the group to pretty much do whatever they want with this guild. It's just one of those things, like if I don't name something right off the bat, like a lot of parties, like even when I say like, hey, you guys have been playing for like 3 or 4 months, like you want to name your party, and nobody ever says anything. Did you roll for initiative?
Oh yes, what I got very low. I think it was a 5. No,
I may potentially kill you here.
it was definitely low. When I cleared the thing.
As far as I'm concerned, you can save 5 or you can re-roll. You probably have a higher chance to live if you re-roll.
Yeah, I think I will go
I
ahead
think
and
you
do
said
that.
you have a +4 to dexterity, so if you roll the 5, you roll the nat 1, and you have inspiration at least moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think it was that low. But
Yeah, so
yeah,
if you've got +4, you might have rolled a 5 like you have a 9.
uh, maybe that sounded. Yeah, it was definitely below 10.
I got you. Well, both of those fit then. Do you think that's what it is, or do you want to re-roll?
Um, I mean, if it's higher than a 10, then I would just say, yeah, it goes first.
Well, it's not a single it. That's part of the problem, but I got you.
Or they, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you are in dim light here as you're kind of pulling Briff up. You hear this initial kind of like almost kind of like croaking, and then like this kind of like screech that comes out of it. You're going to hear kind of like the like the wind kind of blowing of wings, and all of a sudden you're going to feel kind of like pressure as something kind of lands onto your back. And let's see, I've got 3 of these, so let's see which one of you gets 2. You are going to be odds. So Briff's gonna have two of these attacking him. You'll have one attacking you initially here. The one going for you, I should just pull out the D4 already. I believe I should be able to hit you with. We're already going for dim light, so. Oh, yep, this has got dark vision, so it's fine here. Going to be 18 to hit you. All
Yep, that definitely hits.
right, so you'll feel as like these like kind of claws almost like claw into your shoulders, and as these big like soft, like not necessarily like gooey, but very fleshy, kind of like appendages like wrap around you. And then as they kind of wrap around, there's just a like stab into your shoulder next to your spine. And you just feel as this long proboscis kind of like pierces down into your body, and you're just drained of life. And it's going to do 5 damage to you as it starts to suck blood out of you. And then we've got two of these things going for Briff. So I think the high one there is that 9. I think is a 14. I think as a fighter he has higher than that.
I think it's 16. Let me check though.
That sounds about right to me. That sounds fine. So yeah, those like first two kind of like are trying to grasp into him and trying to do a pretty similar thing as they like fly like a little bit closer to the light here, and you can see that these are large bat-like creatures. While they're big, they're still approximately say like the size of your torso. Their wingspan is probably about like 4 or 5 feet, but like the actual like body of this thing is quite tiny. I don't specifically have a map for the attic here, um, and I don't think you necessarily need to know. I don't think you necessarily don't know here, but these are sturges.
Yeah, once you said like the proboscis, and it's kind of what I
Yeah.
kind of came to mind.
You've had enough encounters with these things in the past. So one
Yeah,
of them is technically attached to you right now, which you also know means when it goes to do something next turn, it's just gonna do it. It doesn't have to roll to hit you next turn. So it's gonna start with you. You've got this one on you. Um, Picking up the torch will increase the light that it produces and take you out of this dim light situation. I don't think it's going to harm you at all to do so, because you can also pull your sword with like the action of attacking, as far as I'm concerned. But that's kind of where I'll like leave it there. We'll like blend that free action of like picking up the torch just as much with drawing your sword here to make an attack. But picking up the torch is going to take you guys into actual light instead of dim light here. Were you not to have the torch, it would be darkness, though. That's kind of like where I'm blending this.
yeah. So he is going to grab up the torch, and as he sees this one thing like attached to him and two more kind of fluttering about Briff, he kind of trying to get purchase. Um, I mean, he's already feeling weak after that first kind of strike, and I think he is going to panic a little bit. Um, but he's going to like as he's picking up the torch with one hand, um, he's going to reach into a little pouch at his side, kind of pull out a little. It's like a little like clump of what looks like just like regular sand, kind of like flick it and utter a few words, and he is going to cast sleep, hoping to send all of these things to sleep. I don't, can he put the range like essentially centered on? Well, it's 20-foot range, I guess. So he essentially right centered right in front of him.
Gotcha.
And it's
Yeah.
obviously not including Briff because I get to choose the creatures. So
Okay, okay. It is specifically creatures of your choice, so you can also not do it to yourself.
yeah, creatures within 20 feet of a point. Oh wait, hold on. Creatures within 20 feet of a point you choose within range are.
Yeah, because I was thinking it can definitely put you and Briff to sleep.
Oh yeah, I saw the you choose, but that's the point that you choose, not the.
Gotcha. So you could cast this, and you could potentially get like everybody that you see inside of it. You could cast it and get two of these creatures inside of it, but probably not like. I'd say you could get like the two swarming around him inside of it, or you could get one of the ones swarming around him and the one like on you, but you have a chance of getting yourself inside of it. There's ways that you could kind of like mold it if you want to risk it. And that's kind of like where I'll kind of put like the idea of sleep there. But if you want to get all of them, it has to be centered over you. Like it has to include the two of you.
Yeah, no, I definitely misread that spell. So knowing it could
But
affect
this
me.
is this is the first time that you've cast sleep, I feel like, in since we've played D&D. And just to clarify, sleep is often one that is misunderstood. When you cast it, you're going to roll those 5d8 and it puts to sleep the first creature with the lowest hit points. The second creature with the second lowest hit points, and it does that until it no longer meets the hit points that a creature has left. So right now, how many hit points does Dem have left?
Yeah, he's got three. Yeah, that part I understood. I What I misunderstood was that I thought you could choose the creatures it affects, um, or that it affected enemies. So that's why.
Gotcha. Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of
So
people misunderstand like that it starts from the base and it like goes upward.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I think instead he is going to. I think I have him as still having inspiration. I think from the last session, but if we want to start um, without inspiration, that's fine too. Either way, I think he's going to kind of picking up the torch and essentially pulling his rapier and trying to stab off the one that's kind of uh, sucking out his blood currently.
Gotcha. Yeah, if you've got inspiration marked, as far as I'm concerned, you've got inspiration. So if you want to, basically, like you already picked up the torch, I'm cool with like having your rapier drawn as well. And that's where, yeah, you can use your inspiration to have advantage. Or if you don't use the inspiration, it's just a straight attack.
Yeah, he's definitely going to use it here. So that should be a 15.
Gotcha. Solid strike into it. I assume you do enough damage to kill these things. They're not especially tough. This is pretty simple as just kind of like almost just like shirking your shoulder in a way where you can see its body and just kind of like twisting your rapier up so it's like hilt is still in your hand, point almost coming up towards your face and your eye, and you just kind of like slide it up and through this creature's like first through the blood sac, and it's going to start to like bleed all of that blood that it just sucked out of you all over yourself, but like up and through this creature's like head. You can pretty much see a lot of its anatomy, as most of this creature's flesh, it's clearly a creature of the night. Its flesh has no like pigment to it that keeps it from being clear. They're very thin, gaunt creatures, and you can just see like right to its beating heart and just slide your rapier right up into it, and this creature is going to die.
Yeah, so he's kind of as he like kind of gets it off, his other hand goes to his shoulder, even as he kind of gets sprayed with some of his own blood. Um, and yeah, and then I think otherwise it's kind of turning towards Briff as the other two are flying about him. And is Briff did this happen before or after he actually got up with
As far as I'm playing it off, this is like as you're drawing him up that they like fly out after you guys.
Gotcha. Okay.
I feel like you rolled low enough that I was thinking the struggle was kind of what like drew their attention. Um,
Yeah, I think
the reason I had you roll that D100 was to see like how quickly the torch like took because that light was going to potentially aggravate them. Your own struggle to get up was really easy, so I didn't have them react then. There was definitely that potential to react in like a few different actions there. So I feel like it was like basically in the process of you bringing him up. Um, Otherwise, yeah, you guys are all in the attic right now as these things come to. And he should just have one attack at this point.
yep. Yeah, Briff is going to kind of as these two are trying to find purchase against him, he'll kind of picking one, let's say the one to his left, but whichever. And yeah, he is going to swing out. I believe it's they have a +6 to hit.
Yeah, that'll be plenty to allow him to strike into it, be able to cut through and cut the one down. So I'm not sure which one that you said you were going to attack. I'm dragging this one away and I'm going to drop it on you because there's another one flying out to attack you at this point. It is going to probably miss with a niner, and it's going to go back to the other one kind of flying above Briff. And I think 16 is what you said his AC was. So let me get a con save from Briff as this thing kind of does latch onto him this time and kind of starts to wrap its wings around. And you see as it too is starting to like insert its proboscis into him. Is that the two?
Uh, yeah, I think he's going to go down.
Yep. So you'll watch as like as it kind of slides it in and starts to like suck the life out of him. He just kind of like gets a little bit lightheaded for a second before like it just kind of like almost like slowly just kind of like sinks him down onto his knees and he kind of collapses in that weird like sitting up like prayer kind of like motion, neither like falling forward onto the creature like falling backward. He's just kind of like unconscious kind of on his knees, and it will go to you.
Yeah. So are we using the same rules in Tolus in terms of you can have essentially if you have a potion like on your belt? Um,
Yep, that as far as I'm concerned is one of my go-to's. You can always have a potion prepared as like it's bonus action for you. It's still an action to give somebody a potion.
right.
So if you've got two potions, you might as well just give him one of your normal ones. But like you can always have a potion on your belt, which would make it easy for other people to see if you only have the one.
Yeah. So he's got one. But I think this is the one that he had found that you said had 2 doses in it. Um, but he is going to Dem is he sees Briff fall, but he's also still feeling pretty woozy himself, and now he's got 2 of these things still flying around. So he is going to bonus action uh, take a chug from this potion of healing himself. Yeah, that'll. I mean, yeah, so that'll help him, and then he is going to stab out at. He's going to stab out at the one that is kind of took Briff down, hoping to kind of as it's focused on kind of sucking the blood out of him, trying to stab into it.
Gotcha.
That should be a 23.
Solid strike, no problem at all. Just like slide through its brainstem. You have a plus to your damage, right?
Yeah, it'll be 4 minimum. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely kill it with no problem. So just kind of like as it's like slowly like descending him to the ground, you just kind of like line up the tip of your rapier and just with a little bit of effort kind of like slide it right through this creature. Same idea. It kind of like pops the blood sac and starts to spurt his blood everywhere. This is definitely one of the most like horror show kind of creatures because there's like pints of blood start to spurt when they die. But yeah, you kind of like take it off him. He is still going to be unconscious here. As far as things go, I'd say let me get a death save for him. And then I think it's the creature that's following you right now.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, hang on, Briff. Ooh, and Briff comes to life. It's a
Oh,
nat 20.
solid. So yeah, he will kind of stand up as you kind of pierce through this thing. This thing's about to attack and potentially take. Well, it's probably going to take one of you down. See if you can kill it before I get to take that attack.
Yeah, his eyes like pop open. He kind of comes back, and yeah, he's gonna kind of like big overhand swing, trying to just like essentially cut this thing in two.
If I may, it's probably going to be an underhand swing because he's got to pick up his sword off of the ground.
Oh yeah, that's a good. Yeah, and almost like yeah, just like stabbing upwards. Yeah, yeah, that.
Yeah, or like an uppercut kind of thing. Just like the swing. I mean, it doesn't matter how you do it, but it's probably coming from below. But yeah, with his plus solid strike into it. Again, you guys need a plus to be able to kill these things once you hit them. And you can cut down the last of these.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I know we both know what sturges are. Is this anything? Are these like common enough in Tolis that Dan would have any idea, or he just knows they're disgusting insect-like kind of thing?
Just roll like a wisdom or intelligence here.
16. They're both flat. So
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of one of those things. Like this is certainly sort of like the vampire bat of like Dungeons and Dragons creatures. Like people know and understand about vampire bats. This is like that fantastical version of it. It is certainly something that people often describe like to their children, and people like to hope. They are simply just kind of like myth and tales. But as far as things go, I would say, yeah, this is a pretty well-known creature.
gotcha. Yeah. So he's going to kind of give a little shudder, and then he's going to take a moment, cast prestidigitation to try and get like the worst of maybe like the blood off his face. Maybe.
If I may, as you are starting to do this, to actually like starting to kind of assess things, there are more creatures flying up in this attic, and they are coming towards you as well.
Okay. That will change things. And he's not going to waste his time with that unless he is already doing it before he spots them.
I mean, you can basically like be in the process of doing this, but I'm not going to like require you like change like require you do this. Like you can be thinking like I need to get this blood off of me when you start to see or you start to like hear like the screeches and see like off on like the southern end of the attic more of these wings kind of flying towards you as the commotion has kind of attracted more of these things. And just gonna go for yeah. There's two more at this point. One is technically below you in order, one's above you, but it ends up being two attacks. I'm just gonna do one on each of you again. So the first one against you, second one against them. Looking like I'll hit you. And then 16, I think, is what it takes to hit Dem. So probably going to hit both of you here. Whoops, that is not a D6. And then, oh, it does matter the damage I do to Dem. It's going to be 3 more damage to you. I think that's exactly what it's needed. And then I need a con save from Dem.
Dem or Briff?
My bad, Briff. Con save from Briff.
11.
Yeah, so he's solid against it. You'll take 4 rather than 3. My apologies. I'm good at math. One
Oh,
plus
no worries.
three is not 4, or 1 plus 3 is not 3. So yeah, Dem will kind of go unconscious as these things like fly across. One kind of like smashing into him and kind of like dragging you to the ground as it starts to do the same kind of like wrap and like siphons your blood off. Dem kind of like deflecting like the proboscis away just enough to kind of like maintain some of his blood flow. Gonna go for a death save from you, and then it's gonna be on Dem, on Briff, to kind of decide. Well, actually, let's see if you can roll another 20.
Well, so actually, Dem did drink the potion of healing, which got him back up to full health. So that
Okay,
4
okay.
actually is
So 4,
not.
you're good.
Yep. So he's, I mean, hurt because he doesn't have that many hit points, but yeah, still conscious. Yeah.
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah. That's golden. I forgot about like the fact that you were drinking it while you were. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, you take those 4 hit points. Um, I think that puts you at 5, so you're still even above half. Which is the weird, like you're coated in blood, but you're not bloodied. So yeah, you've got one of these things attached to you. The other one, I think it's still attached to them. Yeah, you've got one attached to each of you at this point, and it's just kind of a decider what you'd like to do.
Yep. So he is going to kind of same thing, kind of shrugging his shoulders, trying to get like a little bit of an angle and stabbing out at the one that is attached itself to him. That's a waste of a crit on a Sturge, but that should kill it.
Oh yeah, it's a very very dead Sturge.
And then yeah, Briff, as it they kind of latches onto it, but hasn't quite found its way through his armor yet. Um, is going to swing at it similarly. 14.
14 hits, same idea. You'll be able to kill them with those strikes.
And then yeah, Briff is going to kind of hold up the torch kind of out in front of him and just like essentially trying to like peer around and like see if there's any he hears any more kind of flapping or sounds that there might be more coming after them.
Yeah, a little bit more effort this time to kind of like look around your surroundings at first. Um, and you can kind of like draw the fire out a little bit to like the west of some of these, like to the left of some of these rafters, to the right of some of these rafters. You don't see anything that seems to be like inorganic, or rather organic, rather than like the wood of this architecture. It's just the wrong way of describing something there. You don't see anything that's not the architecture of like these rafters, like that forms this attic. And you can kind of see like the attic goes about like 40 feet to the south of you. But it's otherwise just kind of like this central kind of portion of the house. So you kind of have an understanding like the attic is kind of like just this central rectangle. I don't know why it draws the lines out like that. That's so weird.
Sorry, I was writing down a note and I may have missed something. He said it was like a rectangular room. Don't see any other creatures immediately. Um, my apologies. Was there anything else in that description that I missed?
No, no. You're just able to like draw the light out to the right, out to the west, or out to the right, out to the left, and see like it's just kind of the architecture of the attic. It kind of like fills this central portion of the home, kind of front to back, and it's more or less you can stand pretty much upright in the center, and you're kind of like hunched down, probably almost like doubled over, near crawling out to like either of the sides. And it's really just kind of like an open space where you're stepping through the rafters up top here, but you otherwise don't see anything that doesn't seem to be any of like the square edges of like cut lumber for forming the actual like lattice of this home.
Gotcha. Yeah, so he is going to start kind of yeah, crawling through probably uh I guess kind of right towards, or maybe he wants to almost do like a kind of keeping around the, like, almost do like around the perimeter. Not that it's a big like space, but essentially kind of like go starting like to his left, and then down towards the far end, and then across, and coming back around like counterclockwise direction. Um,
Gotcha. And you just want to kind of crawl through to check and see what you can see up here?
yeah, like mostly most of his attention is focused on like the floor, whether there's anything on top of it, if he sees any, yeah, anything that catches his eye. But yeah, pretty much focused on the ground, or the
Gotcha.
floor.
So there's vastly a lot of kind of rubbish up here. You'll probably spend like 10 or 15 minutes kind of going through and seeing like any given time you kind of like come across like a burlap sack and it's just filled with a bunch of old clothes. A lot of it ends up being like things that are like clearly mildewed or like damaged by the moisture. You can't always kind of like see it because you're like in nighttime right now, but occasionally you kind of like move under a point where you see a star overhead and there's very clearly like a hole in the roof, not just a failure in the roof, but like you're looking at a star up overhead, and those little moments kind of catch your eye and kind of like shine a little bit of light about like what is happening in this place, like why it's so wet, why there's so much damage in this place, is just kind of age is getting to it. But as you go through one, two, three sacks of clothing, there doesn't really seem to be anything. You eventually kind of get to the point where you find one of these that, as you kind of like open it up initially, you see just like a doll, and you kind of like go to kind of move it to the side. And it's only kind of in moving it in the firelight that the eyes kind of catch the fire a little bit more. This little like mildewed doll, but its eyes are made of jade, and those are 10 gold pieces apiece.
Yeah, so a little creepy. But Dalton is going to, yeah, kind of like pry out the, once he kind of sees the glint and kind of recognize what there are, pry the eyes out, and
I said that poorly. I mean, in the module it says a porcelain doll. I like the idea that it's just a little more traditional kind of rag doll. But either way, the jade is technically what has the value. But if you wanted to keep it as a doll, it is technically meant to be a porcelain doll.
oh no, I meant he was going to like essentially pry the jade eyes out of the doll and leave the doll behind.
Gotcha. Yeah, 100%. I feel like that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if you had somebody who grew up like with porcelain dolls, if they would be immediately taken by it. Because kind of wonder, like, I think a porcelain doll, theoretically, you could probably clean it and like reclothe it, and it would be just as nice. But yeah, to anybody who's like just treasure hunting, pop, pop, those two eyes are. I mean, that's one of the reasons why like coin is really great. Finding gold is awesome, but that's 20 coins there that weighs a pound versus those two eyes have like no weight at all.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, and same, he will give one of the jade eyes to Briff. but no sign of the pendant, unfortunately. And yeah, he doesn't want to.
Let me get a intelligence check from you here.
And that is so flat 19.
So there's a few rooms in this place that you're perhaps more likely to have missed if this thing has fallen in a place that you've gone. And it's likely a place that is kind of filled with a bunch of other stuff, because if it's lost and missing, it's not going to be in a place like kind of like unexplored. It's just kind of scattered amongst other shit kind of thing. So like, everything up here is like damaged and old. But it's all bad. If somebody would have found this like emblem, like this like thing, they're going to probably be wearing it simply because it looks nice, or they saved it to like sell at market kind of thing. If it's still lost in this house, it's probably scattered near and like with other things. So like you've been in rooms where there's like piles of clothing, this and that. Those are the rooms where if you've already gone through it, that you want to look again.
Yeah, I think he went through. I think the first time he might have like one or two like kind of almost at random. But now that he's kind of looked in the more obvious or open places and found nothing, it's almost like, okay, now we go room by room and just like essentially tear each room apart kind of thing. Uh, yeah, so he is going to, but it's also getting, I think, pretty late at this point, I would think.
Yeah, you've probably been back in the house for probably about like an hour now, and essentially came here at sunset. So you're probably looking at like 8 to 9 in the evening.
Yeah, so I think he's going to suggest that, kind of first thing in the morning, we kind of double our efforts, go through each room, fine tooth comb kind of thing. But you know, maybe we'll be fresh. If we get a fresh start in the morning, our eyes will be better, and we need to recover from these, this day. And he's going to suggest probably we go down to the cellar again where we left our stuff and maybe try and rest there. It's not going to be a comfortable place to rest, but
Gotcha. But go for a rest in the cellar.
yeah, we won't be able, obviously won't be able to keep watch all night, but um, maybe Dalton will try and kind of keep watch for a couple hours before he finally sleeps, and then maybe um, I think then um, Briff. So like for the first 4 hours, we'll try to have somebody keeping watch, but after that, um, we'll just kind of take our chances.
Gotcha. Where do you want to rest at? What are you thinking here?
I'm thinking probably back in the corner where we had. I think you said we kind of put our stuff like in this kind of corner over here. So yeah, about in
Yeah,
this
so I
area.
was almost thinking like if you're just hiding the backpacks behind them, like if you drag those out like a foot or two, and then slide the backpacks back there, and then slide them back into place.
Okay, gotcha. But maybe something
Just
like, yeah,
trying to like kind of hide the idea, like if you looked at this thing, it's gonna look like the wine cellar it's always been. You might never even notice that there's like a gap between those like um, wine racks in the wall.
gotcha. Okay. But essentially, yeah, probably so like essentially kind of like trying to like essentially sit and lean up against obviously again not going to be a comfortable place to rest. Essentially like leaning up against like the racks and like sitting down or
Alrighty. Let me get a perception check from you. Just to reiterate, this is the second time I think you've walked into the cellar twice. I think this is the fourth time that you've now walked into the cellar. There is no scream when you come down this time.
yeah. So I mean I'm thinking maybe it's like it resets after a certain period of time. But you know, anyway, that will be a 19.
Alrighty. So your first hour of watch kind of passes by, and are you watching with light? Are you using torches during this watch, or is this more or less just lights out and you're trying to listen?
Um, were there any? Are there any windows that we saw in the cellar? So she's worried about maybe light being seen from outside is kind of why I'm asking.
Roll a perception check.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
Yeah, from what you can see, like looking around, there doesn't appear to be any windows. But that's kind of like one of the things where perhaps there's like windows that you just don't actually like spot kind of thing, where they're like shuttered up or some such.
Yeah. So I think maybe he's not going to keep the torch lit, but he's going to light a candle because we have a limited. It doesn't have so many torches, so it doesn't want to use up um, basically essentially four over the course of the hours. But he is going to essentially light a candle, so we're not completely in darkness.
Gotcha. Like have a candle kind of lit and just kind of like sitting nearby and like a couple of torches there. So the moment like you need it, you can kind of create
Yeah,
light.
yeah, because he also I forget that it's actually one useful thing with prestidigitation is he can essentially cause a torch to a light to light up essentially immediately. So we'd have like an unlit one, close at hand, but for now, just using the candle.
Gotcha. Oh, I mean, the candle also would do the same thing, but I got you. Um, yeah. So candles, how long do they burn for? Is that one
Uh,
candle all night kind of thing?
Let me see. Oh, actually, a candle is also 1 hour, but I still think he's going to use one or two. He does have five, so the candle is 5 feet of bright, 5 feet of dim for 1 hour.
Yeah. So I'd say kind of like just hanging out and trying to maintain yourself conscious through like the first bit of your watch here. You're just kind of like sitting tight, holding to, just slowly watching the candle go, and the night's kind of like burning through. Eventually, you get to the point where the candle's starting to flicker and it gets the last bits of its light, and you're preparing to light your second one. Let me have you do another perception check.
8.
All right, there's no way to do this secretly because I don't think you have it kind of clearly situated on your character right now. Um, how much coin do you actually have on Dalton at present?
Uh, let's see. I feel like some of his gold he would have. I'm trying to think how much he brought into the. He probably, knowing he was going into the Warrens before he first came out, he wouldn't have been brought most of his gold, but he would have essentially let's call it like about 50 copper and maybe probably like 15 silver on him.
So like you have a purse of like 15 silver and 50 copper.
Uh, yeah,
So you won't notice this yet. You are effectively just kind of missing this on your watch. It's gonna go by pretty much without your kind of recognition. But at some point, you are going to have that purse kind of cut from your waistband, and you'll lose those 50 copper and 15 silver pieces as somebody comes by and somebody leaves without ever being noticed. It might be the type of thing that you notice it when you actually go to wake up uh Brith. Might not even catch you until the next day when something similar to that like sausage vendor happens and you go to reach for it.
yeah. I think after the long day, he probably and he must have dozed off at some point, or um, yeah, I think he probably it wouldn't be something he would notice immediately. Um, Also because he wouldn't be thinking of that. Like probably once he woke up, if he wakes up in the morning, might be he might notice it at that point. But for now, he's not going to notice it immediately. I don't think.
Then when you are good to go, let me get a d20 from Brith.
All right, and same thing. I think we're going to burn another candle, or well, two more for one per hour of wine. 17 for the first hour.
While Briff kind of takes over the watch and is trying to kind of keep himself awake, he starts to hear things around the house, kind of like signs of like moans and creaking floorboards, things that really start to like make him question whether this place could be haunted and some of the actual nature of this place as like a place that is like haunted and evil. And it's some things closer by, some things further away. But he does start to pick up signs of activity in the house. Um, any interest in trying to go about and locate these things? Do you try to just kind of hold to and like get through the night? What are you thinking here?
Uh, yeah, I mean, he's thinking, yeah, okay, if this place is actually haunted, the last place we want to be is in the creepy cellar. Um, so I think he is going to try to essentially shake Dalton awake, them awake, and just kind of almost like kind of hold a finger to his mouth and kind of like listen. Um, and I think when um, Dem wakes up, hears kind of starts hearing some of the same things. He's going to nod to Griffin. Excuse me. Yeah, he's going to want to try and go investigate. Um, Maybe try to sneak up to the top of the stairs and see if there's
Well, let me start with having you roll a perception here.
that will be a 2.
But that will give you inspiration if you Did you already use it? Do you still have it?
I used it in the Sturge fight, so yeah, I was
So
out.
you can have inspiration there, though. Yeah. So as you kind of like try to listen, you hear sounds of like wind passing through holes in the roof. That kind of accounts for like the moaning and kind of like these kind of like feminine screams kind of passing through. You hear sounds of floorboards that kind of like creak and moan with the difference in like the barometric pressure that kind of makes them swell and then kind of like retract. I'd say is as he tries to kind of wake you up, it seems like Dem has a solid reason to think like this is what old houses do. This place, those noises, they're just what houses do.
Yeah, so we might kind of let this place get to you, Briff. It's just the wind, just the yeah, and I think with that then he will kind of turn over and try to get back to sleep. It's like this it's nothing, you know.
So, do you want to take Briff alone to investigate, or do you see a reason why that should be enough to comfort Briff?
I mean, I don't really think Briff is comforted, but I'm not sure he wants to go off on his own either. I think if yeah, I think he's going to want to actually assuage his own fears. Like part of him is thinking, you know what, he's probably right, but then he's also thinking, but maybe I should just check. Um, uh,
So let me get a investigation from Briff. I guess really it doesn't matter that it's a investigation, but indeed.
yep, 19.
So when Briff kind of like just unsettled with that kind of result of Dem like just kind of twisting over, and he kind of like continues down, and he's just kind of like walking around, pacing this place instead of kind of relaxing. He feels like he hears some of these screams from down here, but you guys are down here. There is a singular room, and it's just one of those things where eventually he just kind of sets his ear up against the stone to the south, kind of cupping his hand around. Hears screams, swears there's somebody being attacked, swears he hears the cackle of laughter. Taking a closer look across this wall, eventually kind of like comes to the recognition like there's a point where the grouting around some of these stones is like failing. It's all kind of like brushed aside, and it's almost like there's a bunch of these stones that are kind of separated from the rest of the wall. And eventually he finds like a little symbol. Um, roll, do another d20 for me. Let me see if I can describe it to him and he knows it.
12.
Um, yeah, so hmm, I'd say he doesn't quite recognize the symbol to know exactly what it means. But I think he kind of sees this like inlay, and like one of the bricks just has kind of like a little circular like emblem almost in like a 2 by 2 centimeter, a tiny little portion of this brick, and it just has this little circular symbol in it, and just kind of like rubbing his finger around it to like kind of like try to like get a better sight of it, maybe like transfer some of the oils from his fingers like to this bit of brick to be able to see it in the candlelight, and just kind of like rotating around it in a circle. He just like a little bit of pressure, and he hears a little bit of as the stone starts to move, and it just stops. The stone, like outline where there's no grout, all of that just moved like a little bit of centimeter, like about a centimeter out, with just a little bit of pressure into that little like side piece of the brick.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, I think once that happens, he's going to go and more forcefully shake Dem and be like, "I told you I was, told you, get up," and kind of he'll point towards the wall, and it wasn't the wind. I know what the wind sounds like. You need to give me more credit, Dem. Um,
So giving him like this little bit more knowledge, like forcing them to kind of come out. He can see these bricks kind of pulled away from the wall, like the outline of what this, like a person could walk through this gap. This is clearly like a secret compartment. He can put his ear up to it. You can hear laughter, you can hear activity, screams, both like good and bad sounds coming through this stone.
yeah, so Dem, a little bit abashed, is going to should have listened to you. Wonder if my uncle found this before, and he is going to kind of picking up the candle that is still burning. He is going to Dem is going to take the lead and try to see if he can squeeze through, trying to be quiet if he can.
Gotcha. So right now it's not like this is just like pulled out. He can show you that same little thing, but like he touched it with just enough pressure to start this thing moving. It's one of those things though, that is essentially a button that he could press further to like open this doorway perhaps further. But for right now, like this is just like recognizing it's almost like a human shaped block of stone that there's no grouting around. It's like meant to come out of here.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I misunderstood. I thought the opening was already human sized. But yeah, so
Yeah, it's like the next choice is like, are you ready to continue forward? Do you push this to like move forward?
I mean, I probably not a wise thing, but hmm. Is there any way to tell? So Dem is going to take a little time and kind of looking this over. Is there any way to tell whether, like, like kind of maybe looking around looking around the ground, see if there's any like flakes of grout, like whether this has been opened or recently? Is
Roll
there?
an investigation with Dalton.
So that would be a 20 total.
From what you can tell, you not only see signs of like somebody having come through this room already today and kind of like used the stairs like recently, um, which might bring you to recognizing that you no longer have that purse. Still up to you on that one. But as far as this door goes, you can definitely see that somebody has today walked through this part of the wall. You can, they're faint footsteps. It's not like it's like clear, like footsteps in very soft mud. It's little bits of recognizing like this little like bit of the like the arch of their foot. You can track these footsteps like basically like from the stairs directly to this wall.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think he's going to, with the thought that maybe his uncle found. I think maybe at this point, once he's kind of recognized that this is kind of in use fairly regularly, and we've been down here, now he might recognize that his pouch is gone. Um, but yeah, I think he's with the thought that his uncle may have kind of come through here when he was here. He's going to turn back towards Briff and well, and then press the button, like little more with more force to try to fully open the wall. I was torn there between me as a player being like he's gonna die, and but them it's let's investigate.
Not gonna say you're not gonna die. So assuming like one or both of you basically has a torch here at this point, and you guys kind of move forward, he shows you this little mark on the brick, and you two kind of like go forward, and you can kind of feel there's like a little bit of like a real time here. It's like as you kind of like press into this pressure thing, there's like almost like a kind of pneumatic like ability for like this little bit of the wall to kind of extend outward towards you. After a little bit of moment, it just kind of is like almost like free floating, and you can open it up further. By the time you are opening this, you kind of hear some of the commotion within. There are people on the other side of this. They're already kind of like almost kind of like yelling to each other to like snap to, and they're starting to react. So we're gonna go right to initiative as you kind of open this up, and you can see this room is just lined with beds. Um, I should say probably somewhere in here you would notice individuals actually like chained and kind of like left on the ground in near nude states, with like severely tarnished clothing. Very quick reaction. You're pulling in some of the scents of people who are living in filth and excrement to like flavors of like wines and like fresh berries and things, where there's that like blend of like sweat, blood, mud, filth, and like the finer things of life. You know what I mean? Like you're opening up this thing and there's just going to be a rush of we just like uncovered slavers.
Gotcha. Yeah, like a they again like libertine vibes. Like like high society doing just like terrible things. Like the contrast.
Going more on the idea of like these are like working class pirates, so they smell like body odor just as much as like the other people are like locked in filth, like just their own filth, blood, and like sweat too. But they're also like dining on, say, like grapes and olives, like drinking finer wines, because it's just one of those things where like I don't know, going for the idea of sometimes you have people who make really good money and they spend it just as fast. Uh,
Gotcha. Okay.
like I've known a lot of like I've worked a long time in like the service industry, and I know a lot of people who make really good money in the waiting industry, and they still basically like make rent in like the last 5 days of the month, even though they're making like $1,000 any given day doing this. And it's just like just why don't you save money ever? Why are you broke until you're like under pressure to make the money for rent? It's kind of that idea where it's just like they have no sense of what they should be doing with their money. It's just, hey, we're making good money, let's fucking live good.
Yeah. 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 I definitely know people like that too. So anyway, so that 20 was my initiative roll.
That's going to be solid because right now I've rolled really low, and it's going to be good for you to go first.
All right. So yeah, I don't know what Dem was expecting, but was not expecting this. but I think he is going to step through, and as he's kind of seeing, and when you say like they're snapping to, like they're drawing weapons or moving, like
So
I was
among kind of the first impressions here, like the three at the table are definitely far more like actually like prepared and yeah, like mid drawing weapons. The two who are like kind of on the beds are like standing up and like reaching for weapons, not necessarily drawing them yet. No reason to think that any given one of them is not going to be prepared to attack when it comes time, though.
gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's kind of um yeah. So now is, I think, when he is going to cast sleep.
20-foot radius on sleep?
That is a 20-foot area within 20 feet of a point you choose. Yeah, so I guess it would be 20-foot radius. Yeah, or 20-foot
Okay, yeah,
diameter. No,
yeah.
20-foot
Yeah,
radius.
I meant to say diameter, but yeah, 20-foot radius is probably my mind correcting my mistake. So yeah, without a problem, you can definitely hit all of them. I would say it's probably more likely that you might accidentally put like one of the people who are chained against the wall to sleep. But I don't think that would be problematic for you as well. It probably
Yeah,
lets them suffer less.
I was.
Um,
Yeah, I was almost thinking centering it on
Actually,
like right
wait
near.
though. I shouldn't let that happen so casually because you don't want to hit the slaves because they're likely to have the lowest hit points. So
Okay,
let me actually roll and generate slaves and see.
so these two on the bottom are the. I jumped to the conclusion these were all basically enemies. That's why I was thinking of.
No, yeah, that's what it should be. Is those are the enemies. So that's why I say I should put the slaves on the board because sleep matters. You have to place it in a way that you don't put them to sleep.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Just because like if they're beaten, bloodied, and whatnot, you can pretty much guarantee they're also not the highest hit points. They're going to be the money bag. Gotcha. So if we consider those as where they kind of have the slaves like kind of chained up against the wall, along those kind of areas there, um, stairs up into the ceiling, kind of over near them there as well. You've got some more beds and whatnot, belying that there might be a lot more people around here. What point do you think you're looking to cast this on? I feel like you've got a good spot here, but I want you to kind of pick. I think you can draw if you could mark the point for me.
Just looking for the what I would use to. Oh, on the right there. Okay. So I guess kind of centered like right there. What I was thinking. Like just to the right of the this main guy, or the center guy.
Roll a die for me. You can have odd, nobody, even you get one of them.
Okay.
Just because this is the first time you're casting it,
Yeah.
and it was like kind of slightly off. Even so, yeah, you'll kind of like have it in a place where like one of these little slaves is potentially caught inside of there. Let's get the roll of your 5d8.
Ooh, 23.
Roll a d4.
1.
Gotcha. So that's quite literally what you needed to roll there. You'll watch as how can I make this more invisible? I didn't actually think about that. I don't think I can. I deleted. Alrighty. So you'll watch as like one of these little slaves kind of just like passes out. And then I think realistically, roll 2d8.
I'm just gonna clear this first. if you're good.
Yeah, your original roll was 23, then 1.
Yep. And then
I've got
2d8.
them on my whiteboard now. Yeah, 2d8, and this is going to be +2.
So it'd be 12 and then plus 2, 14.
And then roll 2d8. What is it? You got 7 more hit points, so roll low here, and you can get a second guy.
Nope, 8.
So one of the guys kind of like standing up and like closest to where you focus this, like he like goes to stand up and he's just going to kind of like fall over, like just thunk, just like slams down into the ground.
All right. And he is going to kind of trying to shout some words of encouragement to Briff, like we're in for it now. Like let's make a name for ourselves here. Going to give Briff bardic inspiration with his bonus action. Move aside from the door so Briff can move through.
Man, I rolled their fucking hit points to generate some hit points, and I rolled low as fuck. And I can't help but say, um, that's actually how we should have done it. I should have had you roll all of them to generate all of them. Does it sound good if we just use the ones like the 2 that you rolled and then the ones that I rolled? Or do you want to roll the other 3?
No, I'm good with using that combo. Of course, the one time I rolled good on hit points is for enemies.
Yeah, so I've got 3 of them passing out though, is my point.
I mean, I'm happy to roll.
Because
Roll
again, it
all.
starts from the lowest up, and it would have been 2 if we just took their average. I often play just with averages because it doesn't necessarily matter a whole lot. The difference of like what you guys roll for damage often soaks up the difference of what like averages are. But sleep is just that like one spell that matters is the weird thing.
Yeah, I'm happy to roll them for the others. Yeah.
All right, so roll like 3 more sets of 2d8.
All right, 14.
You just want to bring pain to yourself.
12.
This is not what I expected.
And 8.
So the 3 that I rolled, none of them were over an 8.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I rolled what,
So
4 to 5, well above average.
it'll still put the 12 asleep, who's the guy like closest to you. It's actually going to be like the 2 guys who are closest to you are going to be the ones who fall asleep here. So you kind of have these 3 guys along that back, and then almost like that line of 3 who fall asleep, like the slave. Like those 3 are all asleep.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
I think the gray border was probably the wrong choice, but all of the ones who are currently sleeping have the gray border.
Yep, I got it. I got you.
But you move in, cast sleep, move out of the way. Dalton or Briff can then hop in and do his thing.
Yeah, Briff is um yeah, I think he's gonna be kind of seeing these people shackled and almost kind of just like enraged a little bit and almost not even thinking of the odds here. Is going to, if he can reach the one kind of behind the table, so past the one who is asleep.
I
If
think
I can
that's
look
yeah,
at
right. I think that's right inside of his reach.
And just go like, what's the? He's like shouting like, "What's the meaning of this?" Even as he's swinging his blade at this one, trying to cut him down. And oh, we can't give our sidekicks inspiration, right? Or advantage.
I'm perfectly fine with it. I don't like unless you're fishing for a crit. I don't think you need to because they have much better chances. But as far as I'm concerned, when you're rolling the dice, you can use your inspiration because that's Justin's inspiration. Inspiration is very meta, but that's okay meta. Like it's meant to be like this is what makes it our story is the fact that there are shit like the gods basically that make it work out for us.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, he's got the bardic inspiration. So and yeah. And Dem at this point is basically going to be relying on his weapon. So yeah, he might use he'll rely on his bardic inspiration from Dem. Um, yeah. So this just be a straight roll then.
Yeah, I mean with their +6, yeah, he's got a 25 to hit. At level 1, 25 is an absolute crush. You're never gonna miss with a 25. Like that's just kind of level 1 shit. But roll for damage here. What sword does he have? What is it on
So
that?
I think we've been kind of jumping around because if I remember, like the first session, he had a couple hand axes, but then I think we switched him to a sword.
Well,
Um,
I was gonna play him as a barbarian though. That was the difference there. But that was where it was like my NPC who you controlled as a friend versus letting it be like the retainers that we used previously.
okay, gotcha. Yeah, then I'll go with the barbarian. You've been using him as it'll be
Well,
a
no, I think you
longsword.
have the sidekick for him. I think you still decided one, but that's why he had hand axes before. But it's purely up to you. Whatever you want to use him as, you can use him as that, but just kind of decide on one.
Yeah, I feel like a uses maybe a longsword, like yeah, no shield, but just a longsword. So is two handed? Is that D10?
Yeah, I think it should be a 2 or a D10 for the two-handed.
10 plus whatever his damage bonuses.
It's either 2 or 4 with that +6. Um,
Good plus two.
okay, you do have the fighter version of it.
Uh, Hold on, let me.
Oh wait, the swordmaster I've got with a great sword with 2d8. Ooh, did we make the swordmaster dexterity build? Is that what Briff is? I feel like I might have
That
made him for you.
yeah, that was
Yeah, he does 1d8 plus 4 piercing damage. Ooh, that's kind of weird. And then I've got a separate hit. But yeah, he's like the dexterity build. So he wears light armor with the 16 defense. Strength and constitution saves still. His weapon is a +6. 1d8 plus 4. Bonus. Oh, that's what it is. He has a bonus action as well. That's what it is. The bonus action is the +6 to hit and does another d8. So he's got two rapiers, is what it looks like. You still have that build? It's like the red and orange. That's how I know I made it.
yeah. No, you sent it to. Oh,
You see it?
okay. See it now. Yep. Yeah. Swordmaster Dex. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely what he is. So he actually has two attacks. So that 10 doesn't matter right now. I mean, we could call that the 8 because it is max damage. So he'll do 12 on the first attack and just do a bonus action with his second attack, and roll to hit him. You pretty much need to hit him and deal.
So I'm going to use my Bardic Inspiration on that one.
Gotcha. So it's an 11. Bardic Inspiration is +1 is the worst. You need a 12 to hit him.
Okay.
So yeah. Strike into him. You need to not roll a 1 on your D8 damage to kill this guy.
Close, but
So just kind of like one stab, like up and through his like rib cage into his chest, and you can kind of see as he's still like fighting through the pain, trying to bring his sword down on you, as you kind of just like extend your other sword and just kind of like impale like down through his shoulder blade, like locking off that arm so it can't continue forward anymore, and then like into his chest cavity, and he's just gonna collapse before you.
gotcha. Yeah, and that's all for Briff. That's his full movement, full action. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna make a note to myself too to remember kind of uh what
You've
we
got so many of those little handouts.
I really do.
I wonder if I have it like written. I should actually keep track of your sidekicks at this point, so I have a quick reference to them. Because like that's one of the few things I moved off to OneNote and moved them out of Notion. And I grab them that way every single time now. But I could at least like keep track of your sidekicks. So yeah, there's just going to be a waterfall of these guys at this point because that's part of the problem of having one person as your party. Um, so I have, I think we're gonna go with two of them. I think two on each of you. Two of them are gonna close in on Briff. I know that, and they're just gonna try to swipe at him with their individual swords.
Are there more coming? I guess more coming from upstairs.
No, no, no. I just mean, oh wait, two of them are asleep. Okay. Yeah, so realistically, the first of those should be the one on Briff. The second of those is probably the guy. He's too far away from you, so he's got to shoot his crossbow. So, oh damn, 220s. Yeah. So I did not look at those while I was actually deciding that. That's astounding. Um, I don't know if you can live through a crossbow shot, but yeah, that one guy's out of range, and he's definitely going to shoot his crossbow at you. So Briff needs to save DC 7. Yeah, I mean, but it's for 2 wounds, but it doesn't matter. He's got 1 wound still. He's level 1. You just need a con 7 for him to
Yeah.
save. I think it is a not 1. Yeah, exactly. Briff's gonna go unconscious there. And then we're just gonna see this might be kind of end game for Dem because
Yeah.
it's gonna be 2d8 from this crit
Yeah.
plus
14.
1.
14 or more kills him outright.
$14 or more outright is dead. So
Yeah.
yeah. So 11 is unconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of those things. I think it is a viable end game. It's kind of the sad idea of attaching the character to your uncle for that plot hook instead of making it something where I might have to actually question the buy-in, or you might question the buy-in of how much do I care about this. But yeah, you kind of like bust into this little slave ring, and you guys are going to be kind of put down almost immediately. As far as I see that, this is one of those things where you're going to get sold into slavery. I think it might be interesting or intriguing to potentially have something where we either do like an escape and you try to do something along those lines. Not sure how it would play out, but we could kind of talk about that. Or even just questioning, like, do you guys get seen by somebody who might know you before kind of getting sold off?
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking is, essentially if we turn him into an NPC, and essentially if we tried to make one, if you wanted to, I mean, this is just something to think about just off the top of my head, but think about, like, so his parents, right? They sent him off to try and find his uncle. He disappears now, and they scraped together a little, as much money as they can for a reward. Maybe they, um, essentially post a quest and see, like, go investigate and find out what happened to Dalton DeMarcus. Um, but
Gotcha. Potentially have like a quest that leads you to like questioning Kalimtas, like finding out about the twin stars, brings you to like, to the uncle, to Kalimtas, potentially to, like to the twin stars, potentially to here kind of thing.
yeah, I mean, I'd be cool with trying, like, basically like an escape thing too, but the escape thing is then just essentially it's limited to, like, obviously it's a solo mission
The
unless you.
problem with escape things, yeah, is one, it's kind of rough because it's isolated as is. But it's perfectly fine to have other people escape and like join things like that. But the problem with escape things is it's usually the type of thing where it's one wrong move and you're like dead. Um, it's that the dice are already severely stacked against you, kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'm probably I'm leaning towards, essentially he's either dead or sold into slavery, and I will essentially create a new character for Tolis, and if that wants to be one of the quests at some point, or one of the available quests, cool. But otherwise, this is kind of sad ending for them, but I'm good with it. Yeah, just essentially rolling up a new character too. So especially too, if Rashad is, if we're potentially going to have maybe Rashad able to play Sundays, or not Sundays, Saturdays, now that Order of the Storm has wrapped up. um Maybe the timing kind of works out well. I'll just, we can create new character at this, new characters at the same time.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like that's got some legitimate rounds to it. Let me ask real quick. If that wasn't a crit and you took 8 damage, that's still unconscious, right?
Oh yeah, I was down to 5 hit points because we hadn't
Gotcha.
actually rested yet. So yeah, once
I
I
was
saw how
just
many
thinking
people are, like, one
if you
regular hit.
used inspiration to make it disadvantaged, and it was just a normal hit. I guess really that's still a viable question. If you used inspiration to make it disadvantage and it missed, you're still conscious. But you had inspiration there, right?
Um, yes.
Because I feel like that's one of those things where, I'm not sure if you're actually thinking along that level. I feel like it's about to be another 22. I mean, a miss might change things. Do you want to play it out as if you use inspiration there? Or do you want to call it there? What are you thinking?
Uh, I don't think I want to, go. Yeah, I feel like it'd be kind of cheap for me to go back and say, "Okay, I'm going to use my inspiration," um,
Gotcha.
especially because really, I mean, with this many enemies still around, like, one regular hit is probably going to drop him anyway. So I'm good with kind of just like, this is the end for Dev. And I sort of knew that. Like, you gave me some hints, like, or, do you think you're ready for this? And me as a player was thinking, this is stupid. Like, they shouldn't do this. But Dem is thinking, well, what if my uncle came in here? And so I had a, I was not shocked at this outcome. Let me just say that.
Realistically, it's high risk, high reward too. Like of the people who have been playing inside of Tolis, Dem was quite legitimately far more wealthy than most people. But you were also taking really big risks where other people were not taking nearly the same like amount of risks, let alone the actual danger of said risks.
Yeah, and if I had rolled, lower for their hit points and put more of them to sleep, and we were fresh, but um, no, I'm happy with this. Well, yeah, I'm good with how this ended. I feel like this is a pretty fitting.
It's one of those things. You're never like happy dying, but it is actually a legitimate death.
Yeah, like yeah, this was not cheap. I mean, he could have just as soon as he saw all these people turn to flee, I could have made him do that. Not necessarily he would have gotten out, but um, and like
Yeah,
again, the
so
sleep. You know, if I had rolled really low for their hit points and put more of them to sleep, could have been a different fight. If they could have missed. So it wasn't like there was no chance for us to win. Just the dice were not, with me, and that's how it goes sometimes. So, but I definitely like Tolos' setting. So looking forward to creating another character, and it's not 100% necessarily the full end of Dem. So
well, it's been fun how things have intermeshed because this is like just the level of where things have gone already. It's crazy how many of the little organizations we've already kind of like touched into and played around with. Um, I don't know how much of it you've read, so how much you ever recognize as I like drop these like as just the person who owns like the same book. But it's one of those things where I'm just like, it's fucking cool because like all of these different things are so interwoven. There's like a beautiful level of how many levels of crime there are in this place. As many districts are there. There's like all of these insulating levels to all of the different criminals. There's a lot of really cool interconnections to all of these different things. And I mean, I personally, I can't wait to explore them all enough. I look forward to if we're going to be playing solo missions, having you guys at higher level, um, or simply just getting an actual party together, because it's a lot of fun being inside of a city place, but it's also meant to be just as dangerous as being out in the wilderness. And that's one of the things that I think is like cool about the fact that you like stayed in the house is instead of it's one of the things like going to the Conjuration Tower on Saturdays. Was it cool that you guys found a way into like essentially a magnificent mansion? Yes. Did it become the thing that as soon as you guys like encountered anything, you ran back to the mansion? Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Because a lot of things that I see, it's just like, do not set your west marches in a city. And it's like, why? And it's like, because there's safety there. You need people to go about the effort of like exploring danger. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean to some extent, um, obviously combat with a solo game is a much deadlier, and it probably lends itself a little more to like more exploration RP heavy sessions, just for the for slightly more chance of staying alive. But yeah, it'd be
It's
great if we
definitely
could.
a blend of trying to do like Call of Cthulhu style, where it is the investigation.
Yeah, but definitely, it would be a great kind of like because again, love the setting, so like we could get a party together, even like a semi regular West Marches party and have it episodic stuff. Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes down to it, if this draws like Rashad and you decide to play towards that quest, that'll be fine. If you decide to do it the next time for Sunday, the next time Chris works, we can plan it for then. But I do think that'll be kind of a cool idea. of like essentially having your family track down a bounty. And I mean, theoretically, you can kind of like look over Dem's stuff and kind of like even make a decision. Maybe he left something of value that he already had found. And that's kind of the type of thing that the family can leverage. So you can kind of come up with any of it if you'd like along that level, or simply tell me like how much of their bounty they're able to raise. Um, if you don't want to come up with it, I can try to figure something out because I do think we placed your mother inside of like the river gate as like a servant, and your father is like a guild worker. So they're not poor. They're just also not wealthy.
Yeah, so kind of the idea I had been having is like sort of, so Den's still kind of living with them, and so he essentially, some of the stuff, like he doesn't want to carry around all of his nice like stuff. So he essentially kind of hides it. He has like a little kind of like maybe compartment like under the floorboards of his room, and maybe I'll have to go through his inventory because and see kind of what he might have left behind there before going out to the Warrens and how much would actually be there. But maybe his parents find that and they use that to offer as the essentially reward, or sell and to raise gold for the reward. And it's not something I would try to like push. Like if Rashad is playing next week, obviously I'm not going to suggest like, oh, let's go rescue my character. But like maybe, yeah, like you said, like if the next time Chris is unavailable to play, or it just works out, like someone else says, oh, that sounds like interesting quest, then yeah. But um, yeah, nothing I would be like, yeah, we need to do this one like now, because obviously that would not make any sense. So yeah, I'll get you like a like what I think he would have kind of had back in his place, um, that his parents could potentially find and like sell or offer as reward.
Sounds
Because
good.
yeah, because they're not going to have not going to have a lot of money um, available on their own, uh, unless it was like, yeah, and they'd essentially either have to borrow money from like a loan shark essentially to offer as a reward, and then you know uh, that would be kind of psychologically traumatizing. Like they borrow money from a loan shark to get a reward so someone can rescue Dem, and then by the time Dem gets rescued and comes back, they haven't been able to pay the debt and they've been killed. But
Well, and that's one of those things that kind of brings in, like, I mean, that would be a wicked arc to find out that, like, your mother stole from the family who, like, hired her, who she works for in Rivergate, to, like, hire Sinway and got herself into, like, debt with the Killraven Crime League, without even recognizing that you were already kind of working for Sinway. So he had kind of like tied into your family twice. Like, I feel like that's the kind of thing where that's true life, how things like play out and how criminals like take advantage of the needs of like the hopeless.
would definitely be a cool little story.
You
Um,
know, she like starts approaching people and like asking about you around the neighborhood, and eventually somebody like sends her to Sinway, and Sinway asks for a price he knows she can't pay. And, you know, maybe insinuates like, you know, the family you work for, they've got a old piece of art that many people have been eyeing for quite some time. If it went missing one day and just so happened to arrive here on my desk, I would be able to waive that 500 gold fee in order to find your son. Does your son not pose a value to you? Were you ready to just allow your son to die alone in the dark? But again, that's just purely riffing with you here. Like, I feel like there's some pretty cool ideas that you could go for. And, you know, maybe that's an idea of your next character is play one of your parents.
mm, Yeah, yeah. I'll have to. Oh, yeah. I'll have to think about the my next character. I mean, also I could just create. Uh, and I kind of thought about that anyway, creating a couple different ones.
Oh yeah, that's perfectly fine as well. Like, but that's one of those things where sometimes I feel like the greatest characters can just come into tying into like the previous arcs you were already playing. And one of the things again about adventures is it doesn't matter how old you are. It's when you answer the call to adventure that you kind of find like again like hit points are not because you can take like these wounds and you're still like not injured. It's your ability to ignore grievous wounds and kind of keep battling through it. And that's one of those things where, like, you know, if you wanted to play your mother, it's the idea of she just wants to save her child. Like when moms like lift a car off of their infant or whatever. Same idea with playing your father. It's just like, you know, he throws down like the shackles of the day to day life working for the guild and like, you know, that'd be an awesome like hammer barbarian. He's like an old like silversmith and he's got like his like Maxwell silver hammer, like just going around murdering people, like just looking for them. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where there's a lot of really, really cool ways you can take something. And that's purely from the idea of like can just be the character who stems from the story that you told with them. But yeah, you can create as many characters as you'd like in the long run. Um, in general, though, it's kind of like I would almost say mostly like stick to the tiers, but it also is the problem of if you've got a group of level ones and your character is level like four, level four kind of trumps level one pretty hard. Level three still does a lot, but they're still vulnerable. But that's kind of one of the things. Like level five, 100%. Like you shouldn't be playing around with level ones.
Yeah, no, but no, I do like the idea of yeah, like yeah. I mean, his father's like works with the sands as a laborer, so it's probably fairly strong in like the rage of yeah, barbarian rage. Yeah, I like that idea. So yeah, I'm gonna think about and there's like I mean, there's like plenty of movies about that, right? Like so, and I kind of like the idea of like playing like essentially someone turning to adventure like middle or even kind of later age. Like I've never really kind of played that sort of character, so it'd be kind of cool to try out. So yeah,
Yeah, it's like you didn't choose to become an adventurer. The world chose you.
yeah. And it's it's almost like well, kind of like Taken, except he does not have any particular like skills. Like if he was starting at level
That's
like
100% what I was thinking of was taken.
but like if he was like if we had like if there was a group that was already like level 4 or 5 and it's like yeah okay he's been working as a smith for years and years but back in the day he messed some people up he still knows how to do it when it's called for so but yeah no I like that idea so yeah I think I'll probably probably end up yeah I'll create like a probably gonna not aligned with Dem character but then also probably one for his father Davros.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, uh, we can potentially have maybe the idea like your mom posts the quest and your dad turns to a life of adventure. And like that's their two reactions to it.
I think that makes sense.
Otherwise, the other way of doing it is just to remember like the eventual goal of this is for you all to have ideas that you want to do anyways. So, you know, like if you have I know you've got your days and you're usually playing anyways, but if you've got like a Wednesday off where you don't get like you don't have to go into work, um, or maybe a Monday would be more likely, you could say like Veterans Day is coming up. I'm not going to be working this Monday. Anybody trying to game this time to this time, I want to do this quest trying to find where my son who's disappeared in the like Guildsman or Warren's districts. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the things eventually that I hope the West Marches do is that you guys know enough about the place to like create the prompts yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
Because it doesn't have to necessarily be posted like a quest like that. And it could be the same type of thing as where you say, Davros is going to pay you from his pocket to help him. But any treasure that's found, we split between us as a group. Or maybe you say, as their reward, like, you all can take 2 parts of the treasure and I'll take one.
right, right, yeah,
But I think a lot of those can be cool ways to do it. That might be the answer to how you say, my parents aren't wealthy enough to like pay to get Dem back. But maybe if Davros is moving around trying to get people incited with, look, he was finding treasure. He thought we didn't know, but we know. He was selling it to somebody who's in the underworld. That's my first step. I know there's treasure to be had and you guys can gain some of that wealth. You just need to help me.
yeah, yeah.
All right, well, you take it easy. I guess we can, in a very sad roundabout way, enjoy a little bit of an early end for today and kind of separate here. But yeah, I think that's one of those things. I think double 20s like that is a fuck all. It kind
That,
of says this encounter is not for you.
yeah, that's just God giving you the finger right there. So, yeah, no, but I mean, sad ending, but I had a lot of fun with the session. So, um, yeah, I am. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go grab some dinner, and then I'll talk to you over the week, because I'm, depending on what Rashad wants. I mean, I'm sort of planning on, do something in Tullis on Saturday, either, um, regardless of whether Rashad wants to play. Obviously, it'd be great if we could have a couple or more people. But I'm basically keeping this time slot open, you know, going forward. So